Chapter 3388. Luo Yu looked at the arrest warrant in his hand and lowered his eyes. His gaze was cold, but he was still smiling innocently, like a young noble who had run away from home. He tilted his head and looked at the warrant, hesitating. I think I've seen him before, but I don't think I've seen him before. What? You've seen that thief? Quick, tell me, where did you see him? Luo Yu pretended to be hesitant. I saw a man and a woman at the other end of Drunken Evening Forest. The woman seemed to be heavily injured and was covered in blood. The man was tall, but his side was facing me, so I didn't see him clearly. As he spoke, he pouted and showed an unhappy expression. It's all because you didn't allow me to watch the show, Uncle Wei. I didn't see that man's face clearly. Uncle Wei had a doting expression. Young master, that man was filled with a bloody aura. You came out to train and have fun. There's no need for us to provoke such a fiend. Master! The young man trembled with excitement. It's Qingjiu, it must be Qingjiu and Yin Chuqing. This time, even Jiang Chulin couldn't remain calm. Young master, do you remember where those two people are? Luo Yu pretended to recall and said hesitantly, this Drunken Evening Forest is full of twists and turns. I really can't tell you which direction it is, but I can control the little puppet that leads the way. As long as you follow me, we'll definitely find that place. As he spoke, a palm-sized bee flapped its wings and appeared in the air. I heard that treading Wave Temple is best at puppets. Today, I can be considered to have helped several seniors, so I don't want the reward on the wanted poster. Can Senior Jiang introduce me into the Over-the-Wave Palace? Even Jiang Chulin, who was shrewd, couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. If you can really lead us to that audacious thief, introducing you to the towering Wave Palace will be as easy as turning over a hand. An hour later, we're here. Look at that drunken Wanfeng in front. I saw the man and woman there. Hearing Luo Yu's agitated voice, Jiang Chulin hurriedly led everyone from the towering Wave Palace over to investigate. There are indeed traces of cultivators here, but their auras are very mixed. It seems like there are more than two people. Could it be that someone else found them first? As they were discussing, they heard a low chuckle coming from behind them. Of course, the auras here are very heterogeneous because there are not two people at all. Sha sha sha. The surrounding Zue Wanfeng let out the sound of leaves rubbing against each other. Immediately after, cultivators wearing the same clothes as the young guard walked out of the forest one by one. 10, 20, 100, 500, 1,000. Everyone was wearing the same clothes. Every single one of them landed on the ground without a sound, moving forward and stopping at the same time, their auras coming from the same source. Jiang Chulin's expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. How could this be the bodyguard of an aristocratic young master from some small sect? This was a well-trained army. Who the hell are you? Of course it's someone who wants your lives. Luo Yu pinched the way-guiding bee and looked on casually. The corners of her mouth curled into a faint smile, and her two dimples could be faintly seen. Are you crazy? We're from Treading Wave Temple. If you dare to touch us, aren't you afraid? Before he could finish shouting, Luo Yu had already raised her hand and gently slid down from the air, making a beheading gesture. Chapter 3389. In the next moment, the 1,000 cultivators in the forest moved at the same time. Jiang Chulin's expression was extremely gloomy, but he didn't care about these 1,000 soldiers. Almost every one of them was only at the mortal cultivation realm. If they wanted to keep him a peak profound life realm cultivator, they would need to see if they had the ability to do so. But he didn't see that behind Luo Yu. Wei Mian's eyes lit up with a silver light, his pupils dilating and focusing. 15 minutes later, there was a large hole in Jiang Chulin's chest. He slowly fell down with his eyes wide open. Even in death, he didn't understand. How could he die? He was a peak profound life realm expert. Even if he couldn't win against a group of mortal cultivation realm cultivators, he could at least escape. But why did he realize that he had no way to escape from the start of the battle? Besieged on all sides and in despair, He could only face battle general. That was an army with a battle general commanding them. This was the last thought in Jiang Chulin's mind. Luo Yu walked forward and saw the corpses of towering wave palace cultivators on the ground. His face darkened and his eyes showed some anxiety. He vaguely had a bold guess. The person that the young lady who fell from the cliff and almost lost her life wanted to save might be his second senior brother. Uncle Wei, we have to be quick. I'm afraid my second senior brother is in danger. Wei Mian nodded, his voice gentle with a hint of respect. Seventh young master, don't worry. We will send everyone out. Even if we have to turn the entire drunken evening forest upside down, we will definitely find him. On the other side of the drunken evening forest. Elder Zhao, we found him. It's a human puppet. An excited voice sounded. Zhao Rong, who was using his divine sense to explore, heard this, and his eyes lit up. He hurried over, looking at Qin Jiu, who was sitting beside a rock with his eyes covered. Zhao Rong couldn't help but laugh excitedly. Our towering wave palace's only monarch-level human puppet is finally in our hands. Ha 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 ha. On the floating island, there was a special type of cultivators called Spirit Masters. Spirit Masters were usually split into two types, Summoners and Puppet Masters. Whether it was the spirit beasts summoned by summoners or the puppets created by puppet masters, they were all split into 5 levels. Normal ranked, elite ranked, commander ranked, monarch ranked, dominator on the floating island. No one had ever seen a sovereign summoned beast or puppet. There were only a few overlord-level beasts. The strength of the over-the-wave palace was at the bottom of the 6 families and 8 sections. That was because they were only good at puppets. The puppets that they could manufacture and control were only at the commander level. 14 years. A whole 14 years. Zhao Rong held a black bone whistle in his hand. His eyes were shining with unspeakable resentment. Suddenly, he lifted his leg and kicked Qin Jiu to the ground. Lowly thing. Back then, my surmounting wave palace had to expend countless treasures and lives just to create you. A mere human puppet actually dared to run. How dare he run? Do you think you can escape from the control of the soul-making whistle? After Qin Jiu was kicked to the ground, it seemed as if it didn't feel anything. It sat up in a daze and continued to lean against the rock. Zhao Rong took a few deep breaths before saying, "Inform everyone around the drunken evening forest that we found the puppet. Haha, our contribution this time is too great. It's mainly because of Elder Zhao's leadership." Zhao Rong's face revealed a bit of pride. He picked up the black whistle and blew it. Come, let's return to surmounting Wave Palace. The surrounding disciples hurriedly took out their flying swords and soared into the sky. Chapter 3390. However, after flying for several meters, Zhao Rong suddenly felt that something was wrong. The human puppet didn't follow? He suddenly turned his head and saw that Qin Jiu was still sitting beside the rock, like a lifeless puppet. But if he looked at his movements, he would discover that his hands were firmly locked into the rock, his body slightly trembling, unwilling to move a single step. What's going on? His appearance has clearly been completely puppetized. The soul-making whistle should be able to control him. Zhao Rong flew over with a sullen face and blew the bone whistle again. Human puppet 122, follow me. He clearly saw that Qin Jiu's body below trembled, as if about to stand up. However, the next moment, his body that was about to move was restrained by his hands that were firmly inserted into the rock. He cannot leave. Shao Qing had said to let him wait here for her. If he left, what would Shao Qing do if she couldn't find him? Elder Zhao, it's already been so long. Could it be that he still hasn't been puppetized? Zhao Rong's expression turned ugly as he gritted his teeth and said, "Break his fingers and take him away. He's clearly a puppet of my towering wave temple, yet he dares to rebel against his master." The disciple under him responded. Yes, their actions were very simple and crude, directly taking out an iron rod imbued with spiritual power and ruthlessly smashed it towards Qin Jiu's hands. Crack! Crack! The sound of bones breaking rang out one after another. Everyone who heard it felt their hairs stand on end. But Qin Jiu, whose hands had been broken, seemed to not feel it at all. However, when the people of Towering Wave Temple threw out the immortal binding demand to pull him up from the ground, his eyes, which were covered with white veil, overflowed with a trace of bone-chilling scarlet. "Ah! Bastard! You actually dare to bite me! What the hell? Just a mere human puppet." Zhao Rong's face was cold as he expressionlessly said, "Pull out all his teeth. Next, if he uses his hands to resist, cut off his hands. If he uses his feet to resist, cripple his feet. In any case, he's just a puppet. When the time comes, think of a way to replace him. Since his soul is still lingering in this body and refuses to dissipate, I'll let him have a good taste of what it's like to be unable to live or die." The disciples of Towering Wave Palace nodded repeatedly. Someone leaned over to pry open Qin Jiu's mouth. Someone took out a pair of pliers and walked towards Qin Jiu with an evil grin. At this moment, there was a loud bang. The drunken evening forest was surrounded by strong winds and huge waves. Zhao Rong's complexion changed drastically. He instinctively used his divine sense to summon several huge puppets to block in front of him. The screams of the disciples and the shattering of the puppets could be heard. When the gale dissipated, Zhao Rong saw the scene in front of him clearly. His pupils constricted and his hair stood on end. 1,000 people. They were actually surrounded by 1,000 people. As for the disciples of Towering Wave Palace that he had brought with him, all of them had suffered injuries of varying degrees. "Who are you? Why did you attack my Towering Wave Palace?" Zhao Rong had just finished speaking when he saw a handsome youth descend in front of Qin Jiu. Seeing that Qin Jiu was covered in cuts and bruises and had lost his divine soul, Zhang Xian was stunned. Luo Yu's eyes were about to split open. The anger in his chest almost caused him to lose control of his rationality. Second senior brother. He squatted down to help Qin Jiu up. Finally, he could not hold back his tears and dripped onto his face. "Second senior brother, how did you get injured to this extent?" Qin Jiu's eyes were wide open, but his pupils were covered with a layer of white veil. He turned a deaf ear to Luo Yu's words, completely like a puppet. Chapter 3391. Luo Yu panicked and pressed on Qin Jiu's heart. Only after confirming that he still had a heartbeat did she heave a sigh of relief. "Second senior brother, don't be afraid. I'll take you to sixth senior sister immediately. Sixth senior sister is so powerful. She'll definitely be able to cure you. Right now, I'll make those who hurt you pay 100 times. 1,000 times the price." Luo Yu slowly stood up and looked coldly at Zhao Rong and the others. He didn't notice. Qin Jiu's fingers by his side moved slightly. A tear seemed to flow down from the corner of his eyes. His tightly pursed lips also relaxed. "The Shaoqi is here. Great, he's back at the Carefree sect. He's home." Zhao Rong stared at Luo Yu and said sternly, "Who are you?" "I'm Elder Zhao of Overwave Temple. This person is a thief who stole an important person from Overwave Temple. You're so close to him. Are you an accomplice of the thief?" Luo Yu looked at Zhao Rong and the others as if she was looking at dead people. What's the use of knowing whether they are accomplices or not? You're going to die soon anyway. Impudent. You dare speak to Elder Zhao like that? Kid, don't be too arrogant. Do you think you can stop us with this 1,000-man army? The army is strong, but if we just want to escape, you might not be able to stop us. Once we return to Towering Wave Hall, what awaits you is a miserable doomsday. As an elder of Overwave Temple, Zhao Rong's cultivation had reached the mountain opening realm. The 1,000-man army was indeed troublesome, but he didn't believe he couldn't escape. But the next moment, Zhao Rong saw a red soul pearl appear behind the youth's back. The giant Bifong divine beast spread its wings in the air and let out a crisp cry that shook thousands of miles. After summoning the Bifong divine beast, Luo Yu took out the puppets in his storage space one by one. They were just low-level elite puppets. At first, Zhao Rong didn't care at all. But when the puppets went from 10 to 100 to 2,000 to 3,000, the people of Overwave Temple were completely dumbfounded. But it wasn't over yet. At the same time, the surrounding Zue Wanfeng, rocks, grass huts, Snakes, insects, rats, and ants seemed to be attracted by some power and started to gather around the youth. Slowly, they formed one puppet after another. Zhao Rong had never seen so many puppets in his life. It was as if the entire mountain was filled with an army of puppets. Luo Yu said, "Uncle Wei, leave the puppet to me and the person to you. I want these bastards who hurt my second senior brother to die without a burial place." Wei Mian stared blankly at this scene for a long time, his eyes slightly red. Suddenly, he knelt on one knee and bowed. "As you command." "Yes, Your Highness." In the city lord's residence of Carefree City. The Treading Wave Temple's human puppets are said to be humanoid puppets made from special materials. However, many people knew that these puppets were refined from living people. This process was extremely cruel, and it was as if the 3 souls and 7 spirits in a person's body were forcefully extracted. This is puppet transformation. Wei Mian paused for a moment before continuing. "I believe that second young Master Qin should have been made into a human puppet by the people of Towering Wave Palace. But the strange thing is that not just anyone can be made into a human puppet. The process is extremely complicated and can't be completed in a short time. If second young Master Qin had only been on the floating island for a few months, it's reasonable to say that he couldn't have succeeded. At this time, Mu Yen had already given Qin Jiu a preliminary treatment. But the situation wasn't ideal. Chapter 3392. Almost half of Qin Jiu's 3 souls and 7 spirits have disappeared. The center of his sea of consciousness is also bound by a rune. If it is forcibly destroyed, his entire sea of consciousness would be equivalent to being crippled. Even his external injuries cannot heal on their own because of the lack of his divine soul and spiritual awareness. Hearing Wei Mian's speculation, Mayan's eyes burst with a strong murderous intent. But now is not the time to seek justice from over the waves temple. Sixth sister, can second brother still be saved? Mayan says in a low voice. Shao Qi, go with General Wei to Manqi City again. Luo Yu stares blankly. Now? Why? Do you still remember the soul-nurturing pond? Luo Yu ponders for a moment, then suddenly asks, Fourth sister, the place where mother went to repair the soul? Maya nods. You and General Wei go get some soul-nurturing pond water. Whether it is second brother or that Miss Shao Qing, they both need the soul-nurturing pond to stabilize their almost broken souls. During this time, I will stabilize second brother and Shao Qing's condition. Okay. I will go quickly and come back quickly. Luo Yu holds Qin Zhou's hand. Second brother, you have to wait for me. Manqi City, outside the soul-nurturing pond. Lung Yuma looks at the little monk with a headscarf and scholar's clothes, and can't help but burst out laughing. Jing Yuan's fair cheeks flush, and he doesn't know what to do with his hands and feet. He subconsciously puts his palms together, wanting to say, Ba. Don't. Lung Yuma stifles her laughter and forcibly presses down his palms. If you do this, we will be exposed. I can't let people believe that I will find a little monk who has nothing but emptiness to be my lover, right? Jing Yuan's face turns redder. After a long while, he looks down at the hand that Lung Yuma is holding, and stutters. I know, female benefactor. Please let go, men and women should not touch each other. Pff. Lung Yuma can't help but burst out laughing again. She doesn't know why. She clearly just met this little monk, but she especially likes to tease him. Especially seeing him at a loss, with his fair cheeks flushed. She can't help but laugh. She can't help but want to reach out and pinch him. Little monk, didn't you say that you wanted to pretend to be a couple with me? You didn't even call my name and said that men and women shouldn't touch each other. How do you expect the disciples of the Great Geese sect to believe you? Jing Yuan coughed lightly. May I know your name? My name is Lung Yuma. Lung Yuma did not keep him in suspense. She used her large knife to draw 3 words on the ground. Remember, don't make a mistake in the soul cultivation pool. Otherwise, if someone sees through you, you might be chased out. The little monk lowered his long eyelashes and stared at the 3 words for a while before he raised his head and said obediently, Little monk, cough. I'll remember it. Lung Yuma thought for a moment, then said, "You are called Jingyuan? Is that your Buddhist name? It doesn't sound like a cultivator's name. Do you have a secular name? Why don't we change it for now?" Hearing this question, Jingyuan was stunned. He looked a little absent-minded and even sorrowful. Lung Yuma's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly said, "If you don't remember your secular name, then forget it. Jingyuan is also not bad, really." She knew that many little monks were homeless orphans and were adopted in the temple since young. It was normal for them not to know their secular name. Jingyuan seemed to have recovered at this moment. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and he slightly lowered his eyes. "It's okay. It's just that it's been too long since anyone asked for my secular name. So much so that I almost forgot it." After a pause, he said in a deep voice, "My name is Blood Moon. Before I became a Buddhist, my name was Blood Moon." Chapter 3393. Blood Moon? Lung Yuma was stunned. She looked at Jingyuan from head to toe, suspecting that she had heard wrongly. The little monk in front of her had red lips, white teeth, and tender skin. Just a slight joke would make him blush and flustered. No matter how she looked at it, it did not match with the cold-blooded and cruel name of Blood Moon. Moreover, this name was not ordinary at all. Okay? It was even more eye-catching than Jingyuan. Blood Moon. Shouldn't it be the standard name of an assassin or assassin? Could it be that this guy used to be an assassin? However, looking at the little monk's crystal-clear eyes, his fair cheeks that were easily dyed red, and his delicate facial features that looked especially shy when he smiled, Tisk. How does he look like an assassin? If she stood beside him, wouldn't she look more like a female bandit who forced a girl to become a prostitute? Jingyuan felt uncomfortable being stared at by Lung Yuma, female benefactor. Cough cough. Yuma, can we go in now? Lung Yuma had heard from the people in the town that there were 3 checkpoints to enter the soul nurturing pool. The first checkpoint was to test if the couple's minds were connected. The second checkpoint was to interrogate the disciples of the Great Goose Sect, mainly to screen the moral character of the person who entered. If greedy people were to enter the soul-nurturing pool, it might cause unnecessary trouble. The third checkpoint was set around the real soul-nurturing pool. The people of the Great Goose Sect would constantly supervise from the side to ensure that the couple who entered would not become enemies. Once the couple was no longer a couple, they would be politely expelled from the soul-nurturing pool. When she heard the content of the 3 checkpoints, Lung Yuma's mouth twitched. The founder of the Great Goose Sect really wanted to see the couple get together. At the start, Lung Yuma was most worried about the last checkpoint. After all, she and the little monk were fake lovers. Whether they were connected or not, as long as the array checked, it would be clear. However, she did not expect that when the 2 of them walked through the array hand in hand, it did not cause the slightest ripple. We passed through so easily? I was clearly ejected just now." Lung Yuma looked at Jingyuan in surprise. "How did you do it? Or is it that as long as you bring a man in, the array will recognize you as a couple?" Jingyuan just smiled gently and didn't say anything. Lung Yuma tried to pull her hand away, but it did not move. "Hey, little monk, we have already passed the first test. Do we still need to hold hands?" Jingyuan's gaze slowly fell on their intertwined hands. Only then did he feel the soft and warm touch and the thin calluses left on his palm from years of holding a saber. The little monk's fair and handsome face flushed with heat. He hurriedly let go of her hand and said incoherently, "I'm sorry, little monk. Offended. I didn't mean to." Lung Yuma wanted to tease the little monk when she saw him like this. But before she could tease him, the sound of light footsteps came from not far away. Lung Yuma's heart tightened. She held Jingyuan's hand again without hesitation and leaned forward. Jingyuan's eyes widened and his body stiffened. He subconsciously lowered his head to look at their hands that were once again intertwined. It was as if he could hear his own heartbeat beating like a drum. Could it be that Miss Yuma? However, he had promised his master and second senior brother that he would convert to Buddhism and never touch the mortal world again. Moreover, the 2 of them belonged to different worlds, and he would leave the floating island sooner or later. Chapter 3394. But if he rejected her, would Miss Yuma be sad? In just a few seconds, the little monk's mind was in a mess. But at this moment, Lang Yuma whispered, "Pretend to be a couple with me. Someone is coming." Jing Yuan then realized that Lang Yuma wasn't. Not. The little monk's face was so red that it could drip water. "Are you the new couple?" A clear and bright female voice rang out. Then, a man and a woman walked out. The man had thick eyebrows and big eyes. He was tall and strong, but he looked a little silly. The woman was wearing a military uniform and had a silver spear on her back. The two of them were very intimate. Especially the way the man looked at the woman was full of love and pampering. It was obvious that they were a couple. Lang Yuma was surprised. Even the guards in the soul-nurturing pool are couples? "I'm asking you. Why aren't you answering? Are you deaf or mute?" The woman asked again. Lang Yuma came back to her senses and smiled. "Senior, we are a couple. We want to enter the soul-nurturing pool." "What's your name? Which sect or family are you from? Why do you want to enter the soul-nurturing pool?" Lang Yuma said what they had discussed at the beginning. Jing Yuan didn't say anything. As she spoke, the woman quickly took notes, while the man stared at the two of them with his big eyes. When Lang Yuma stopped, the man turned around and said in a muffled voice. "I'm lying, but I don't have any bad intentions." Lang Yuma's heart skipped a beat. It can't be? Could it be that this man could tell if someone was lying? Didn't that mean that her fake relationship with the little monk had been exposed? After the man finished speaking, he took out a token and handed it over. He smiled and said, "Everyone has their own little secrets. The Hongyan sect just wants to make sure that those who enter the soul cultivation pool are not greedy people. We don't want to investigate your privacy. Our secret technique can only detect if you're lying or if you have bad intentions, but it won't really probe into your secrets." Lang Yuma let out a sigh of relief. She smiled and reached out to take the token. "Wait, we can't give you the pass yet." The woman suddenly spoke, giving everyone a fright. However, the man still obediently took the token back. Lang Yuma frowned. "What do you mean by this?" The woman snorted coldly and glanced at the two of them. She said coldly, "I suspect that you two are not a real couple." Whoosh! Lang Yuma's heart was in her throat again. She forced herself to calm down and said, "What do you mean? If we weren't a couple, how could we have passed through the array in front?" The man couldn't help but say, "Shu Yen, what they said makes sense. Humph, my intuition tells me that there isn't even the slightest hint of affection between the two of them. How are they a couple?" That man didn't even dare to look at anyone the entire time. He was clearly afraid. Cold sweat broke out on Lang Yuma's back. What kind of intuition was that? He could even tell if they were lovers or not. The woman's scrutinizing gaze swept across the two of them once more as she continued. "If you want to prove that you're a real couple, you just have to tell me how you met and fell in love with each other. If my husband feels that you're lying throughout the entire process, then it must be fake." Chapter 33:95. This method was obviously very fair, so the man no longer objected. As long as the two were a real couple, they would definitely be able to describe the details of their relationship. Even if they had to hide some important information with his secret technique, he would definitely be able to tell the truth. However, Lang Yuema and Jing Yuan could not do it, because they were not a real couple at all. Not only were they not a couple, but they had also just met. The woman sneered, "What? Can't say it? Or do you not dare to say it? I don't care how you pass through the formation, but the soul nurturing pool cannot be entered unless you are a couple. This is an iron rule. If you are not a couple, please leave as soon as possible." Jing Yuan slightly lowered his eyes and pressed his slender fingers on his waist. However, at this moment, Lang Yuema suddenly let out a long sigh and said dejectedly, "I admit, we hid the most important thing." Jing Yuan paused and turned his head to look at her. However, before he could see Lang Yuema's expression clearly, his clothes were suddenly grabbed, followed by a strong force. Jing Yuan was dragged forward by Lang Yuema a few steps and was almost stuck to Lang Yuema. Then he felt a chill on his head. The scarf on his head was pulled off, revealing his smooth head and the ring scar that could not be ignored. The two people from the Hongyan sect were instantly dumbfounded. And, monk? Lung Yuama's face was full of guilt. Now you know what I was hiding, right? Actually, his name is not Lu Jingyuan, but Jingyuan. He is a monk. The aggressive woman pointed at Lang Yuama with a face full of horror. Then pointed at the little monk. You and the monk are, yes, we are a couple. Lang Yuama held the little monk's hand tightly, slightly lowered her eyes, and said shyly, I passed by the temple where Jingyuan is, and fell in love with him at first sight. However, he has already escaped to become a monk, and we have to stop being silly and angry. Disturbing a monk's cultivation should be punished by the heavens, not to mention that his master is against us. Even if I know that we are truly in love, our feelings are not going to last for long. As she spoke, Lung Yuama's eyes were already filled with tears. The two people from the Hongyan sect were dumbfounded. Even the little monk turned his head and looked at him with a dazed and bewildered expression. I also thought of giving up. I thought that it would be better to continue our relationship in the next life. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime love affair. How could I give up so easily? Maybe it was my sincerity and persistence that finally moved him and made him willing to try and accept me. However, when he escaped to Buddhism, he swore to dedicate his body, mind, and soul to Buddha. Once he returned to the secular world, it was equivalent to betraying the original oath. His soul would slowly be eroded until he lost consciousness. I think that maybe the water in the soul nurturing pool can repair his soul. Lung Yuama stretched out her hand and gently caressed the little monk's white and tender cheeks. Her voice was low and hoarse. Jingyuan, if it's possible, I'd rather bear all the pain and torture myself. It's enough to exchange my life for our love. The small monk tried his best to control himself so that the corners of his mouth wouldn't twitch and his face wouldn't reveal an expression that would expose him. At this moment, he really admired the woman in front of him from the bottom of his heart. How did she come up with such a story in such a short time? However, would that shrewd female cultivator really believe such an absurd story? Well said. Chapter 3396. In 1 second, 800 mail sign small divided by talk, net, wonderful pop-up window free reading. The female cultivator who was looking down on them just now walked forward and hugged Lang Yuma's shoulder. She said excitedly, little girl, what you said is too good. We, the children of the pugilistic world, should be free to love and hate. As long as you like a man, you should courageously chase after him. So what if he is a monk? Who said that monks can't return to secular life? I support the love between you and the little monk. If this little monk's master dares to make irresponsible remarks and obstruct you, you can tell me and I will take care of him for you. Lang Yuama smiled calmly. Thank you, sister. But there is no need to trouble sister. Since it is a man that I like, I naturally have to chase after him, protect him, and guard him myself. How can I trouble sister? Good. Well said. The female's eyes lit up. She looked at Lung Yuama as if she had found a confidant. Why didn't I realize that sister was such a straightforward and unrestrained woman? You really suit sister's taste. I hate those pretentious women who look delicate on the outside but are full of evil tricks. The man beside her coughed lightly. Shuyan, what she said just now, many of them were lies. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was chased away by the female. Shoo, we women are talking. Why are you interrupting? Sister, let me reintroduce myself. I am Lu Shuyan, this is your brother-in-law, Song Wu. We are both disciples of the Great Goose Sect. I like you, so I will recognize you as my sister today. When you and brother-in-law get married in the future, you must call me. Lung Yuama smiled and nodded. All right, if Jingyuan can recover his soul in the soul nurturing pool, sister and brother-in-law will be our benefactors and matchmakers. How can you two be missing on the day of the wedding? Lu Shuyan smiled happily. She felt that this sister of hers was really to her liking. Song Wu, who was at the side, was anxious at first. Then he could not help but let out a long sigh. He looked at Lu Shuyan with a helpless and doting smile. Let's go. Sister will bring you to the entrance of the soul nurturing pool now. There were originally a lot of people queuing there, but I like you guys, so I will let you go in first. Lung Yuma pulled Jing Yuan's hand. What are you waiting for? Aren't you going to thank this sister? The little monk's face turned red, and a trace of redness appeared on his fair and delicate face. His long eyelashes slightly trembled, and after a long time, he said in a low voice, "Thank you, big sister." Her blushing face was young and pure, like the cleanest crystal in the world that had been dyed crimson with a gorgeous luster. Moreover, the little monk's appearance was far more handsome than an ordinary person's. Lu Shuyen was stunned for a while before sighing. I finally understand why you fell in love with the little monk at first sight and insisted on marrying him, because she was truly a feast for the eyes. As they spoke, they had already passed through a long and narrow mountain path. The road ahead suddenly opened up, revealing a vast piece of flat land and dozens of people. Some of them were meditating, some were anxiously pacing back and forth, and some were chatting. Moreover, it could be seen that they were basically couples. Lung Yuma even saw a couple of men in the middle. The amount of energy that the soul-nurturing pool can provide at one time is limited, so once the limit is reached, the remaining people will have to wait here. Only when someone has recovered from the soul-nurturing pool will the people waiting here have the qualifications to enter. Lung Yuma nodded and followed Lu Shuyen and her husband into the pool. Chapter 3397. Seeing Lu Shuyen, everyone gathered around her excitedly. Elder Lu, Elder Song, how long will it take for the next wave of people to fully recover? We've been waiting here for a few days already. Lu Shuyen rolled her eyes, without any enthusiasm towards Lung Yuma. She said impatiently, "If you're tired of waiting, why don't you just go out? Why are you shouting in my ear?" Cough. I'm just impatient. Last time, that old man and that old woman clearly came later than us, but they went in first. This isn't fair, right? Biffed. Lu Shuyen frowned. They entered the soul-nurturing pool to treat their illness. What about you guys? Do you think I don't know what you're doing in there with such minor injuries? My ancestors left the soul-nurturing pool to benefit the cultivators who might be separated by life and death, not for you shameless people to profit from. If you dare to talk nonsense again, do you believe that I won't ask my husband to throw you out? The few people who were shouting immediately shrunk their necks and kept quiet, afraid that they would really be thrown out if they said another two sentences. The injuries to their souls were negligible, so they came here to get some soul-nurturing pool water to sell. After rebuking these black-hearted merchants, Lu Shuyen smiled at Lung Yuma. "Sister Yuma, don't worry. There's a couple who will come out in 2 hours. At that time, you and the little monk can go in to treat your illness first." "Thank you, sister." Before Lung Yuma could finish her words of thanks, a cry of surprise came from behind. "Yuma? Yuma? Is it really you?" Lung Yuma turned around, her eyes widened, and she said in surprise, "Grandfather, why are you here?" The person who called out to her was her grandfather, Lung Yaoshan, who had ascended to the floating island with Lung Rollin and Lung Jishuan. Lung Yaoshan saw his granddaughter, and his eyes turned red. Separated from the two worlds, he thought that he would never see any of his family again. Grabbing his granddaughter's hand, he looked her up and down. Lung Yaoshan's lips trembled, but he couldn't say a word for a long time. "Sister Yuma, didn't you say that you're a rogue cultivator without a sect? Why do you have a grandfather?" Before Lung Yaoshan could say anything, Lu Shuyen had already spoken suspiciously. Lung Yuma's heart skipped a beat, the cold sweat on her forehead almost dripping down. Before she could even give her grandfather a meaningful glance, she heard Lung Yaoshan say to Lu Shuyen with a face full of guilt, "Elder Lu, you might not know this, but my granddaughter's biological father is a terrible person. She ran away from home when she was young, and I didn't take care of her for a single day. Later on, in order to treat my daughter's illness, I abandoned her alone. As a grandfather, I have truly let her down. I didn't expect Yuma to be acquainted with you, Elder Lu. It's all thanks to Elder Lu that I was able to wait for my daughter to come out. I didn't expect you to take care of my granddaughter. We are truly unable to repay your great kindness to us." Lu Shuyen waved her hand, telling Lung Yaoshan not to stand on ceremony. Her impression of Lung Yuma had risen by a few points. He held her hand and began to ask her why her biological father was not a good person. The cold sweat on Lung Yuma's forehead almost dripped down. She answered carefully, trying her best not to let Lu Shuyen think that she came to the soul cultivation pool for her mother. Lu Shuyen didn't care about this at all. Hearing about her father's actions, she simply gritted her teeth in anger. Chapter 3398. Abandoning him after using him, harming him. Your father is really a bad person. Younger sister, you have to keep your eyes open when you look for a man in the future. Even if this little monk looks kind and gentle now, you can't be captivated by his beauty. You may know a person's face, but not his heart. Who knows how many good men there are in this world? Song Wu, who was innocently implicated, could only rub his nose helplessly. He looked at Lu Shuyen with an indescribably gentle gaze. However, Lung Yaoshan's eyes widened when he heard that. What did you say? Yuma and this little monk are under the watchful eyes of Lu Shuyen and her grandfather. Lung Yuma bit the bullet and held the little monk's hand. Grandfather, this is my fiancé. This. Yuma, you just came to Fu. You just came here. How did you find a fiancé so quickly? Furthermore, he was a monk. No way. This matter must be considered at length. Lung Yuma felt a headache coming on. At that moment, the barrier in front of them flashed with white light, and a couple walked out with smiles on their faces. Lung Yuma felt as if she had been pardoned. She grabbed the little monk's hand and looked at Lu Shuyen. Sister Lu, my darling's injuries are serious and he can't hold on any longer. Please send us in immediately. As he spoke, he pinched the back of Jing Yuan's hand. The small monk's fair cheeks were flushed red. In the end, he stiffly leaned over and rested his head on Lung Yuma's shoulder, making a weak expression. Sure enough, Lu Shuyen, this enthusiastic person, no longer had any interest in investigating Lung Yuma's background. She directly pushed the two of them into the barrier. Is this the soul cultivation pool? He could feel the thin mist around him and the wonderful feeling of his soul being cleansed. Lung Yuma could not help but exclaim. A stream appeared in front of them. However, the water in the stream was not clear and transparent, but milky white. This is only the accompanying stream of the soul nurturing pool. It's not the real soul nurturing pool. Jing Yuan pulled Lung Yuma forward. Follow me. The real soul nurturing pool is in front. Sure enough, it was just as the little monk had said. As the two of them moved forward, the fog in the air became thicker and thicker. The color of the stream also became milky white and smooth. At the side of the stream, couples began to appear. These people usually didn't have serious soul injuries and only needed to be in this accompanying stream to recover. The deeper she went, the more anxious Lung Yuma became. Mother and Uncle Zhixian are inside? Yes, if grandfather was here, then mother must be inside. However, at that time, her mother's 3 souls and 7 mortal forms were almost completely shattered. Could she really cure her? Be careful! Lung Yuma was in a daze and did not notice that the soil under her feet had become soft. His body tilted and fell into the milky white stream. Her waist tightened, and before she could use the spiritual energy in her body, she was pulled back. The tip of her nose smelled a refreshing sandalwood fragrance, and her body was pressed against a broad and firm chest. He could hear the faint thumping of his heartbeat. Lung Yuma raised her head. She heard the clear and gentle voice of the little monk. Yuma, are you all right? I'm fine. Her ears quietly turned red. It was rare for Lung Yuma to be at a loss of what to do. She pushed the little monk's chest and said with a forced smile, Little monk, you look thin and weak, but your figure is not bad at all. Thank you for just now. I was too engrossed in thinking and did not see my feet clearly. I will be careful from now on. Chapter 3399. After a pause, her voice inexplicably became somewhat bashful. Hey, are you done hugging? I already said that I will be careful from now on. The little monk suddenly came back to his senses and took a few steps back. However, he accidentally stepped into the stream behind him. Seeing his slow and bashful appearance, Lung Yuma could not help but burst out laughing. This time it was her turn to reach out and pull him back. I say, little monk. Lung Yuma reached out and patted his chest. This lady isn't shy yet. What are you shy about? If you continue to reveal such a beautiful appearance, this elder sister will be moved and snatch you back to be my husband. No, please conduct yourself, young lady. Lung Yuma raised her hand and lifted his chin. Looking at his fluttering eyelashes, the beads of sweat dripping from the bridge of his nose, and his slightly trembling lips, she wanted to tease him even more. Conduct myself? This lady is very light. How can I conduct myself? Why don't you teach me, little monk? As she spoke, she actually slowly approached the little monk's lips. Jing Yuan's eyes widened bit by bit as he tightly clenched his fists. If he wanted to retreat and push away the woman in front of him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. However, as Lung Yuma approached, the tip of his nose smelled the unique scent of this girl. Open-minded, valiant, and full of vitality. It was a color that he had never seen before. It was like a ball of fire ignited in the coldest winter night, so warm, so bright. It naturally attracted people like him, eager to get close, eager to possess. The captivating red lips were just inches away, and they were getting closer and closer. A devilish desire suddenly arose in his heart. If he could capture her, would he be able to possess flames and light? No. Everything has its own laws. It was like a dream, like dew and lightning. He promised his master that he would let go of the past and forget all his stubborn desires. Poochie. Just as Jing Yuan's heart was struggling like it was in a pot of oil, he heard the girl's uncontrollable laughter. Really, it's not like I really want to molest you. Why do you have such a fearless expression on your face? Lung Yuma gently patted his chest and tidied up his wrinkled clothes. She then smiled and said, I was just teasing you. Why are you so scared? No matter how hungry I am, I can't possibly make a move on a little monk. Don't worry, your chastity will definitely be preserved, Master Jing Yuan. Jing Yuan's face turned red again, and his expression was one of grievance. There was also a trace of disappointment that even he himself did not notice. Haha, all right, I won't tease you anymore. Let's go to the soul nurturing pool. She could not wait to see her mother. Umo? Just as the two of them were about to separate, a familiar voice called out from behind them. It was Lung Zhishuan. Uncle Zhixian. Lung Yuma turned around excitedly. If Lung Zhishuan was here, then his mother must also be nearby. However, what greeted her was not the excitement and joy of reuniting with Lung Zhishuan after a long time, but the astonished and shocked expressions of the two of them. However, Lung Zhishuan was Lung Zhishuan. He quickly calmed down, walked forward with a smile and looked her up and down. The surprise, astonishment, and joy in his eyes were all replaced by admiration. I once said that you might become the greatest pride of the Lung family. Now that I think about it, I still underestimated you. Chapter 3400. Lung Zhishuan remembered that it had only been half a year since he took Lung Ruolin to the floating island. At that time, what was Lung Ruolin's cultivation level? It seemed that she hadn't even reached the leaving body stage. But now, she was already at the peak of the tribulation stage. From the nascent soul stage to the tribulation stage in half a year, how many people in the world could achieve that? Are you the only one who came to the floating island? Of course not. Lung Yuma shook her head. Junior sister came first, and I followed closely behind. Everyone should have arrived at about the same time, but we were separated. Lung Zhishuan. He was speechless for a moment. Just now, he was still wondering how many people in the world could achieve that, but now Lung Yuma told him. What was this? For the Xiao Yao sect, this was nothing out of the ordinary. Lung Zhishuan was stunned for a long time before he couldn't help but laugh. You must be anxious to see your mother, right? I'll take you there. He didn't ask what the relationship between Lung Yuma and the little monk was. Who was the little monk? He just smiled and led them forward while telling them about his experiences in the past 6 months. In the beginning, they weren't qualified to enter the soul nurturing pool. Lung Zhishuan accompanied Lung Ruolin outside and took care of her meticulously. Then, he tried to pass through the barrier every day. Unexpectedly, on a certain day a few months ago, he suddenly succeeded. Lung Zhishuan slightly tilted his head, not daring to look at Lung Yuma's eyes. Lung Yuma burst out laughing. "Uncle Zhishuan, we've already seen your affection for my mother in the cultivation continent. I'm more than happy that you can have a family and that my mother can find someone to rely on for the rest of her life. Are you worried that I'll break up the affectionate couple? Or do you want me to call you father instead?" Lung Zhishuan blushed and coughed lightly. Impudent, there was a smile in his eyes, and after a moment, he said softly, "Yuma, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to let me be with Ruolin without any grudges. Thank you even more for bringing Ruolin back alive from that hell." "Mother." Seeing the person soaking in the spring, Lung Yuma rushed over excitedly and hugged her tightly. The woman in the pool looked somewhat similar to Lung Yuma, but she looked more mature. But his expression was as innocent as a child's. "Who are you? Why are you calling me mother?" "Mother? Don't you recognize me? I'm Umo." Lung Ruolin tilted her head and her eyes seemed to be moved. "Umo, Umo, what a nice name. I seem to have heard it somewhere before." Lung Zhishuan's gentle voice came from behind. Under the restoration of the soul-nurturing pool, Ruolin's consciousness gradually recovered, but her memory seems to have been lost, and her mind has returned to when she was a child. Seeing Lung Zhishuan coming down, Lung Ruolin immediately threw herself into his arms like a swallow and rubbed against him intimately. "Zhishuan, you're here. I've waited for you for so long. Don't leave me alone. Okay?" "All right." Lung Zhishuan's voice was gentle, and his eyes were full of this shadow. "I will stay by Ruolin's side for the rest of my life, and I won't go anywhere." After saying that, he looked up and saw Lung Yuma's disappointed expression. He said guiltily, "Ruolin's injuries are extremely serious. It will take at least 2 years for her to fully recover. Maybe it's because I'm the only one by her side when she recovers, so I'm the only one left in her memory. But I think she'll be able to remember you after 2 years." Chapter 3401. Lung Yuma shook her head and said softly and sincerely, "It doesn't matter. As long as mother can live well, I will be satisfied. Uncle Zhishuan, I will have to trouble you to take care of my mother in the future." After saying that, she turned around and walked out of the pool without any reluctance. "Yuma, are you leaving just like that?" Lung Yuma turned around and looked at the two people who were snuggling together. Her lips curled into a bright smile. "I came to the soul-nurturing pool this time mainly to see if mother has recovered well. Now that I have seen it, I should go find my senior and junior brothers and sisters. Uncle Zhishuan, you and mother have your lives, and I also have my own pursuits. I just want to know that you are living well and living a happy life. That is enough." After saying that, she did not look at Lung Zhishuan and Lung Ruolin's reaction and quickly walked to the shore. "Little monk, is this the place where you want to get the soul-nurturing pool water?" After Lung Yuma asked, she found that the little monk did not answer for a long time. Suddenly, a hand touched her cheek and gently wiped away the water droplets on her face. These water droplets were all stained by the soul-nurturing pool. They hung on the tip of her eyebrows, the corner of her eyes, and the side of her cheeks like tears. The little monk's hand was not as rough and warm as other men's. Instead, it carried a jade-like warmth and coolness. Although it was obviously cold, it suddenly burned her whole face. "Little monk, what are you doing?" Lung Yuma grabbed the hand that was messing around on her face. When she raised her head, she saw Jing Yuan's pitiful and distressed expression. Slightly stunned, her heart suddenly jumped, and then she could not help but laugh. "Little monk, are you afraid that I am sad? Don't worry, I am really happy for my mother. If she can live a happy life, what does it matter if she remembers me or not? I only need to remember that she used to love and give to me, and that is enough. Moreover, when did she not have anything? She still had the Xiaoyao sect and her fellow disciples. Thinking about being able to reunite with everyone soon, her heart was filled with joy and anticipation. Jing Yuan's mind was almost sucked into the pair of eyes that were even brighter than the stars. He only felt that the skin that his fingers touched was so soft and smooth, but it also burned his fingertips and soul. Ah! He actually touched Yuma's face. The small monk quickly retracted his hand as if he had been scalded. Thinking of what he had just done, he was so embarrassed that he didn't even know where to put his hands and feet. Lung Yuma had already thrown the strange feeling to the back of her mind. She patted him heavily and smiled. "Let's go. You accompanied me to see my mother. Now it's my turn to accompany you to get the soul-nurturing pond water. The water here is already so rich, are you still not satisfied? Wait! In front of us is the core area of the soul-nurturing pool. If you want to leave this place in one piece, you better not trespass." The ones who stopped Lang Yuema and Jing Yuan were two men wearing the same clothes as Lu Shuyen and her husband. According to the rules of the soul-nurturing pool, only couples could enter. Lang Yuma could not help but size up the two handsome men from head to toe, and could not help but mutter in her heart, "Another same-sex couple? Can't be, right? Are there so many people like fifth senior brother these days? Cough. Did you two hear what we said?" Lung Yuma came back to her senses and could not help but ask. The soul-nurturing pool is used to help people heal. Could it be that there is some kind of danger inside? Or could it be that there was some kind of treasure in the core area that the Hongyan sect was afraid of being stolen by greedy cultivators, so they sent people to guard it? Chapter 3402. As if they had seen through Lung Yuma's thoughts, the two of them chuckled with disdain. "If you have the ability, you can take the things inside. It will save us the trouble of guarding this place all day, afraid that someone will accidentally enter and their soul will be destroyed." These words made Lung Yuma surprised. What exactly was it that could destroy a person's soul upon touching it? "I know you want to obtain the purest and densest soul-nurturing pool water in the core area, but the price you have to pay is not something you can bear. I advise you to obediently return to the pool in front. The soul power in the water is already strong enough." However, the little monk's expression was gentle and shy, but his attitude was abnormally firm. In the end, the two people from the Great Goose sect coldly snorted and chose to let them pass. However, they looked at them with an unfriendly gaze. "Since you want to go in, you will be responsible for what happens later. Even if you shout until your throat breaks, we will definitely not come in to save you." Although the words of the same-sex couple from the Great Goose sect were unpleasant to hear, Lung Yuma was not disgusted at all. This sect was really compassionate. Although the soul-nurturing pool only allowed couples to enter, they did not charge any fees. Even if someone wanted to take away the pool water, they would turn a blind eye. For such a dangerous place, there were even people guarding it just to prevent people from getting hurt. This is the core area of the soul-nurturing pool? Seeing the scene in front of her, Lung Yuma was dumbstruck. Why is it completely different from the outside? There was a small pool in front of her, and the water in the pool was boiling. However, the water was not clear and transparent, nor was it milky white and smooth. Instead, it was scarlet red like magma. How could this kind of water nourish the soul? It was even possible to directly burn a person's 3 souls and 7 spirits. PFFF. Suddenly, a huge bubble burst at the side of the pool. Red water droplets splashed towards Lung Yuma. "Be careful." Jing Yuan immediately reached out and pulled Lung Yuema to his side. However, a drop of water still fell on her sleeve. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Half of the sleeves of her clothes, which were enchanted with defensive attributes, were instantly burned off, revealing her fair arms. She could still faintly feel the scorching heat on her skin. What is this? How can it be so powerful? Lung Yuma looked at the little monk in shock. You want to take this water back to treat your master? Was this a cure or a death sentence? Jing Yuan also frowned slightly. I didn't expect that the soul cultivation pool here had existed for so many years, and it had been constantly cleansed by willpower, that it had developed a self-purification ability. All the purified impurities are deposited here. In other words, the purest soul-nurturing pond water he was looking for was in this terrifying blood pond. Jing Yuan said, "Miss Yuma, please step back." Lung Yuma complied and retreated. The little monk took out a golden-red kasaya and draped it over his body before slowly walking toward the blood pool. Little monk, what are you going to do? Don't force yourself. Jing Yuan turned around and gave her a shy smile before stepping into the blood pool. Hiss dash. Lung Yuma took in a breath of cold air. Just now, he had only touched a drop of it on his sleeve, and it was already burned through. Wasn't the little monk playing with his life if he continued walking like that? However, at the next moment, a miraculous scene appeared. The little monk, who was wearing a kasaya, acted as though he didn't feel the heat of the pool. Chapter 3403. The little monk, who was wearing a kasaya, acted as if he did not feel the heat of the pool. He calmly walked to the center of the pool. Damn! Lang Yuma could not help but exclaim, is the little monk's kasaya a supreme treasure? Or was the little monk pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger from the beginning? Jing Yuan had already walked to the center of the pool. It was unknown when a golden alms bowl appeared in his hand. He slowly placed the golden alms bowl into the pool. The little monk put his palms together and slightly closed his eyes. He was muttering something. Then, the boiling pool water started to boil as if it was being roasted on a raging fire. The surrounding temperature suddenly increased by several degrees. Lung Yuma wiped the sweat off her face and took a few steps back. Her worried eyes were fixated on the center of the pool. Will the little monk be all right? As if to confirm her worries, a loud rumbling sound came from the blood pool in front of her. Lung Yuma watched as the center of the blood pool caved in. Jing Yuan's figure was instantly swallowed by the boiling pool water. Little monk! Lung Yuma shouted. Without thinking, she pulled out the red lotus soul-stealing saber and jumped up. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the saber in her hand trembled violently. A huge force came from the blood pool and pulled her down. What's going on? Red Lotus, is there something attracting you down there? Lung Yuma desperately wanted to pull the saber back, but the suction from the blood pool was getting stronger. Even her soul was about to be pulled out. Damn, am I going to die here today? Lung Yuma cursed. She could not hold on any longer and was completely swallowed by the scorching heat wave. So hot, so painful. In a daze, Lung Yuma felt as if her soul was about to burn. The buzzing sound from the red lotus soul-stealing saber in her hand became more and more ear-piercing. The temperature of the saber hilt also became higher. Lung Yuma instinctively wanted to put down the saber. However, she realized something and held it tightly. Blood flowed from her hand to the saber hilt and slowly flowed down the saber blade. In the surrounding pool water, tiny red crystals began to gather on the saber blade. The red lotus soul-stealing saber, which already had a dark red luster, emitted a dazzling red light. One after another, red lotus symbols began to appear on the blade. The originally boiling red pool water actually began to cool down during this process and gradually stopped boiling. However, Lung Yuma was in so much pain that she wanted to die. She wanted to scream. He wanted to chop off his hand that was holding the knife. She even wished for nothing more than to immediately pass out and never wake up again. The pain of the soul being scorched was absolutely not something that the damage to the physical body could compare to. Just as Lung Yuma was about to collapse, she felt her body being embraced in a cool embrace. Something touched her forehead, her cheek, her lips, softly and tenderly. The cold liquid flowed down her burning lips, into her teeth, and down her throat. In an instant, the burning pain disappeared without a trace. Lung Yuma struggled to open her eyes. The first thing he saw was the little monk's worried expression. Lung Yuma suddenly sat up. Little monk, are you all right? I saw you being swallowed by the blood pool. Jing Yuan looked at her in a daze. For the first time, his face, which was sometimes young and shy, and sometimes gentle and compassionate, was moved. Chapter 3404. Just because you were worried about me, you didn't even care about your own safety? Lung Yuma touched her nose and said embarrassedly, I didn't think too much at that time. I didn't think about ignoring my own safety either. It was my saber that didn't listen to me. Speaking of the saber, Lung Yuma looked down and was shocked. What the hell? This is my saber. How did it become so beautiful? The body of the saber had already turned red. As spiritual power was injected into it, the red lotus was faintly discernible. From then on, she could clearly feel that the saber had become stronger than before. No, not just the saber. Lung Yuma's eyes widened. She felt as if she had been hit by a pie. My cultivation broke through the peak of the tribulation passing stage and became a golden immortal? No way, how is this possible? I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't feel anything at all. Jing Yuan quietly hid his injured hand behind his back. As divine power surged, the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. He pretended that nothing had happened and asked, "Did you enter the ruins of Wushang Palace before? This saber should have been obtained from Wushang Palace, right?" Wushang Palace? Lang Yuma was stunned. A vague and distant voice rang in her mind. "Feeling your passion and cleansing Wushang Palace. I taught you the Red Lotus soul-stealing saber and the Wushang flame technique. I only hope that the soul of Wushang will remain in the world forever." Jing Yuan looked at her expression and understood. Wushang Palace was a big religion in the ancient times. Only they could create treasures and techniques that could absorb the filth of heaven and earth. "I really have to thank you, Miss Yuma. If you didn't purify the soul-nurturing pool, I would have to go through a lot of trouble to achieve my goal." Lung Yuma then realized that the two of them were still in the pool, soaking wet. But the pool water was clear, emitting a dazzling 7-colored brilliance. "What happened? Bastard! Didn't I tell you that it was dangerous here? Why did you have to come in?" "Come in." Hearing the commotion, the Hongis sect disciples who rushed in were stunned by the sight before them. The pool water stopped boiling? What was going on? Jingyuan used a golden bowl to scoop up a bowl of water. Once the water entered the bowl, it vanished without a trace. Seeing the disciples of the Hongyan sect enter, he bowed to them gratefully. "Thank you, Hongyan sect, for bestowing the soul-nurturing pond water. This is just a small token of my gratitude. Please pass it to your sect leader." With that, Jing Yuan left behind a storage ring on the ground and disappeared with Lung Yuma. Lung Yuma looked at the sudden change in the scene in front of her and was dumbfounded. "How did we get out of the soul-nurturing pool? Little monk, could it be that you have a teleportation array on you? But that's not right. The two arrays can't be stacked. We're in the soul-nurturing pond array, so the random teleportation array shouldn't be effective." Jing Yuan smiled shyly and didn't say anything. Seeing his reaction, Lung Yuma did not pursue the matter. Instead, she waved at him and said, "Little monk, now that our wishes have been fulfilled, it's time to part ways." The smile in Jing Yuan's eyes vanished in an instant. An unprecedented sense of loss welled up in his heart. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he felt that reunion and separation were impermanent, and they would eventually be separated. Lang Yuma also felt a sense of loss and reluctance, following which, she couldn't help but want to slap herself. Lang Yuma, you have to be more careful." Chapter 3405. Remember in 1 second 800 $say net. Although this little monk was a feast for the eyes, he was still a monk. Could it be that you are so hungry that you even want to covet a monk? Could it be that you are so hungry that you even want to covet a monk? She quickly suppressed the restless thoughts in her heart and smiled. "Little monk, let's say our goodbyes here. See you later." Before she could finish, Lung Yaoshan's angry voice came from behind. "Girl, you are too much. Even if you want to be with this little monk, you don't have to leave without saying goodbye. Right? Lang Yuma, grandfather? Why are you here?" Lung Yaoshan was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. "Do you think I am such an unenlightened person? As long as you really like it, do you think Grandpa will object? Do you need to elope behind my back?" "Lang Yuma, grandfather, listen to me. I and the little monk are just... Little monk, I am telling you." Lung Yaoshan had already turned to Jing Yuan. "If you dare to bully my granddaughter, I will not let you off even if I become a ghost." Jing Yuan's face was slightly red, as if he was at a loss. Finally, under Lung Yaoshan's interrogation, he nodded his head with a red face. Little monk, why are you nodding your head? Lung Yuma was going crazy. Grandfather, it is not what you think. I am here to enter the soul-nurturing pool. However, this time, she did not finish her sentence, because a familiar voice came from afar. Lung Yuma, you are too much. Do you want to escape just like that? Oh no. Hearing this voice, cold sweat seeped out of Lung Yuma's forehead. It was actually Lu Shuyen. Why did they chase after her? And from her tone, did she already know that she was lying to her? Lung Yuma laughed dryly. Sister Lu, I am sorry. I did not mean to lie. Good sister, I did not misjudge you. Lu Shuyen slapped Lung Yuma's shoulder heavily, interrupting her words, then laughed loudly. I did not expect that, Sister Yuma, and the little monk's cultivation is not high, but you actually have such ability. Even the scariest filthy place in our soul-nurturing pool was purified. Now, the soul power there was dozens of times richer than outside. Who knew how many souls could be repaired and how many lovers could be married? I have already reported this matter to the sect leader. He is overjoyed and wants me to bring you to the sect as guests. He wants to thank you personally. So he didn't expose them as a fake couple. Lung Yuma heaved a sigh of relief and the smile on her face became calm. Big Sister Lu is too polite. It was just a coincidence. Now that the little monk has recovered from his illness, it's time for us to go. Don't. Lu Shuyen pulled her back and repeatedly said, Don't, sister. It's not easy for me to meet someone as congenial as you. How can we separate like this? Come with me to the Great Goose Sect. I'll ask the sect leader to preside over your wedding. Lung Yuma said, No need. Haha. There's no need to be so polite with me. Was he afraid that the little monk's master wouldn't agree? Humph, if the old monk wants to object to it, he can come to our Hongyan sect. I'll reason with him. He will suffer retribution for obstructing someone's marriage. Lung Yuma was about to break out in cold sweat. There's really no need. The little monk and I still don't plan to get married. Not getting married? Why? Lu Shuyen suddenly raised her eyebrows and coldly looked at Jing Yuan. Could it be that you, a little monk, dislike my sister? You want to abandon my sister? Jing Yuan. Chapter 3406. Remember in 1 second, 800 $say net. Hey, little monk, what do you mean by not saying anything? Hey, little monk, what do you mean by not saying anything? This time, even Lung Yaoshan couldn't stand it. Do you really despise my granddaughter? I think you're tired of living, right? Jing Yuan hurriedly said, How could I despise Miss Yuma? It's just that when I became a monk, I swore to sever my ties with the world of mortals, convert to Buddhism, and never abandon it. Even though she had already expected it. Lung Yuma's heart was still inexplicably aching. She did not know what was wrong with her. She had only met this little monk by chance and had only known him for a few days. But it was as if a figure was deeply engraved in her mind and could not be forgotten. In the past, she did not believe in love at first sight. Now, she would rather not believe in it. When Jing Yuan said this, his body seemed to be surrounded by a holy Buddhist aura. It made people unconsciously believe that this was an eminent monk who was devout and devoted to Buddhism. Even Lu Shuyen and Lung Yaoshan momentarily forgot to speak. However, when he saw Lung Yuma's darkened eyes, the benevolent Buddhist aura around him instantly disappeared without a trace. At this moment, his mind had almost forgotten about his master, his senior, and the Buddha that he had sworn to believe in. He only wanted to rush over and hug the girl, making the sadness and disappointment in her eyes disappear. He wanted her to be as free and unrestrained as the sun, gorgeous and warm. Lu Shuyen suddenly came back to her senses and angrily said, Little monk, are you fucking burning the bridge after crossing the river? My sister brought you into the soul-nurturing pool to heal your injuries, and now you're turning your back on us. Sister Lu, actually we are not a couple. Lung Yuma's voice suddenly sounded, interrupting Lu Shuyen's long-winded speech. What did you say? Lung Yuma revealed a guilty and helpless smile and looked at Song Wu, who was behind Lu Shuyen. I think brother-in-law has already seen through it, right? Thank you for not exposing us. Song Wu revealed a silly smile. I can see that you don't have any bad intentions. There was one more sentence that he did not say, moreover, you two are very compatible. Lu Shuyan's eyes widened. Silly Song, can you explain it clearly? What do you mean you didn't expose them? What did you see? Leng Yuma told him about how she wanted to enter the soul-nurturing pond to see her mother, and how the little monk wanted to take the water from the soul-nurturing pond. Hence, they decided to pretend to be a couple. Lu Shuyan was dumbfounded. She was so angry that she almost exploded. Did it mean that she had been moved by their unparalleled love for nothing? Leng Yuma smiled and said, extraordinary times call for extraordinary things. However, the relationship between me and the little monk is fake. It is true that I recognize you as my sister. Lu Shuyan was still angry at first, but when she heard this, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. At least you have a conscience. I don't care if you have an unparalleled love with this little monk or not. I will still recognize you as my younger sister. Leng Yaoshan, on the other hand, was still glaring at her. Lass, is what you said true? Don't tell me you're still covering for this little monk after he dumped you? What infuriated Leng Yaoshan the most was that his granddaughter was so outstanding. Why did the little monk look down on her? What poor taste. What do you mean by Buddha having a granddaughter? Leng Yuma burst into laughter. Grandfather, I have only known the little monk for 3 days. Would you believe me if I said that I have deep feelings for him? We pretended to be a couple just to enter the soul-nurturing pond. We don't have any feelings for each other. On the contrary, it is all thanks to him that I can see my mother. Grandfather, you can't bite the hand that feeds you. Chapter 3407. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net there was no pop-up window for free reading. Leng Yaoshan snorted and didn't say anything. Leng Yuma turned to look at Jing Yuan and smiled. Little monk, we really have to say goodbye this time. Jing Yuan moved his lips and wanted to ask her if they really didn't have any feelings for each other. However, he didn't say it out loud. He put his palms together and lowered his eyelashes. His golden-red kasaya made his skin look as fair as jade, but it was also cold. Amitba, Miss Yuma, we will meet again. After saying that, Jing Yuan turned around and left. His footsteps were very slow, as if he could feel the girl's aura for a longer time. However, no matter how slow he walked, she would eventually disappear. He would never be able to see or feel her again. The pair of dim eyes unconsciously flashed in his mind. There was also the unconcealable sense of loss and attachment in those eyes. This farewell might be a permanent one. In the vast 3 realms, they would never be able to meet again. He didn't even have the chance to thank him for getting the purest soul-nurturing pond water for him. And when he saw that she was in danger, he rushed over to save her. Jing Yuan's footsteps stopped, and his eyes flashed with an unprecedented light. He suddenly turned around, as if he had forgotten that he could teleport and fly, and ran back the way he came. Leng Yuma looked at the back of the little monk in a daze. She suddenly felt as if someone had dug out a piece of her heart. She touched her face, thinking that she would feel some tears. However, there was nothing. She couldn't help but chuckle. She cursed in her heart. Leng Yuma, you've learned to be sentimental and pretentious now. How could a man that she had been with for 3 days be reluctant to part with? Who was she acting like this for? If it was a normal unmarried man, she would just give up all her reservations and chase him. However, he was a little monk who was devoted to Buddhism. Was she going to force him to return to secular life and make him give up his faith? Leng Yuma raised her head and looked at the blue sky. This time, she felt a trace of bitterness and pain in her eyes. Her heart was empty and uncomfortable. It would be great if her senior and junior brothers were by her side at this time. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother, fourth junior brother, little junior sister, 7th senior brother. If only they were by his side. 4th senior sister. 4th sister. Is it really you? Just as she was thinking about this, the young man's excited voice came from the sky. It came from afar, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Lung Yuma. Lung Yuma suddenly opened her eyes, and what she saw was a handsome face with dimples. Fourth senior sister. Wow, it really is fourth senior sister. I finally found you. Luo Yu came down from the flying puppet. Her feet didn't even touch the ground as she pounced forward and hugged Lung Yuma. Lung Yuma caught him. After a while, she heard her slightly hoarse voice. Xiao Qi, why are you here? Fourth senior sister. Why are you here again? Right, this is the soul nurturing pool. Are you here to see Aunt Lung? Luo Yu knocked her head. I'm so stupid. Why didn't I expect to see you here? She listened to the young man's chatter, listened to his cheerful laughter, and felt his warm and sincere embrace. The bitterness and emptiness in her heart seemed to fade away in an instant. A smile slowly bloomed on Lung Yuma's face as she hugged Luo Yu back tightly. That's right. What did she have to be sad about? What was there to be sad about? Even without the little monk, she still had her senior and junior brothers and the Xiao Yao sect. Chapter 3408. In 1 second, 800 male sign small divided by talk, net, Lung Yuma stopped. She turned and saw the little monk rushing back. Jingyuan, why are you back? The little monk's chest heaved up and down, and the anxiety on his face had not faded. But when he saw the man and woman hugging each other intimately, his expression turned cold and distant. The hand that was holding the prayer beads unconsciously tightened, almost crushing the beads. Something dark and ugly was bubbling in the depths of his heart, wanting to drill out. Jingyuan suddenly came back to his senses and realized what he was thinking. His face turned pale in an instant. He closed his eyes and put his palms together. Amitba, I will definitely repay your kindness in the future. He closed his eyes and put his palms together. Amitba, I will definitely repay benefactor Yuma's kindness in the future. With that, he turned and left. This time, he really did not look back. Lung Yuma let go of Luo Yu and wanted to call out to him, but she swallowed the words when they were at the tip of her tongue. So what if she called out to the little monk? Could she let the little monk accompany her all the time? Could she really snatch the little monk back to be her husband? Lung Yuma revealed a bitter smile and then let out a long sigh. The little monk only turned his head, and her heart that had just calmed down was in chaos again. Luo Yu looked at Lung Yuma's expression and suddenly got close to her. Fourth senior sister, are you in love? Get away. Lung Yuma slapped her away angrily. So what if I'm in love? Can you make a monk return to normal life? Luo Yu touched her nose and did not dare to provoke the lovelorn fourth senior sister again. Lung Yuma asked, where are little junior sister and the rest? Have you seen them? Luo Yu then remembered something. Fourth senior sister, something happened to second senior brother. He urgently needs the soul-nurturing pond water to save his life. Lung Yuma was shocked and quickly asked what happened. At this moment, the little monk, the unparalleled love, and the bitterness and resentment were all thrown to the back of her mind. Luo Yu briefly explained what happened recently. Sixth senior sister said that if there is no soul-nurturing pond water to restore his soul, second senior brother may be completely crippled for the rest of his life. Isn't it just soul-nurturing pond water? Lung Yuma pulled out a disdainful smile. This is what I have the most right now. Do you want the diluted inferior products or the purest core soul liquid? However much junior sister wants, I can give you. After second senior brother is cured, we'll go and skin every single person from that bullshit over the Wave Palace. It just so happens that I'm in a bad mood and need to vent. On the other side of the forest, Jingyuan, who had already walked far away, slowly stopped at the top of a mountain. He stood on the cliff, looking down at the mountains, rivers, houses, and fields, his expression blank and vacant. After a long time, the red rosary beads on his chest lit up slightly. Jingyuan's expression changed, and he put his palms together, returning to the appearance of an eminent monk who had not fallen into the mortal world. With a slight movement of his spiritual sense, a solemn Buddhist hall and a vague figure hidden in the darkness appeared in front of him. Upon seeing this person, Jing Yuan hurriedly put his palms together. Greetings, eldest senior brother, little junior brother. Is your heart in disorder? A low voice slowly floated into Jing Yuan's ears. His back suddenly stiffened, and his fingers tightened on the rosary beads, but he did not say anything. A soft sigh sounded. Did you get the soul-nurturing pond water? I didn't let you down. After a moment of silence, the low voice asked again, what about the whereabouts of the remnants of the Shen Lu sect? Did you find it? Chapter 3409. Sky-floating island, Liberty City. Zizizi. There's a sharp, stinging noise in her mind. Chuching frowns and slowly opens her eyes. Miss, you're finally awake. Please wait a moment. I'll inform the city lord right away. Chuching holds her head and sits up, looking around at the unfamiliar environment. Where is this? Why is she here? His messy thoughts began to slowly clear up. Chuching remembers that she lured away the people of Above the Waves Temple, and then was caught and tortured. Chuching's small and thin body unconsciously curled up into a ball and shivered as she recalled those hell-like hours that were completely dark and sunless. At that time, she didn't even know how that group of people was torturing her. She only knew that she was in a lot of pain. Squeak! The door is pushed open, and Mayan quickly walks in. Miss Een, you're awake? Chuching looks up blankly, her pale little face showing a confused and absent-minded expression. When she woke up for the first time, she was in too much pain, too desperate, and too eager, so she didn't see the person who saved her clearly. Now that she can see clearly, she almost thinks that she's in a fairyland, in a dream. How could there be such a beautiful woman in the world? Is she really still alive? Is she already dead? And what she's met now is actually a fairy from heaven. The little girl can't speak, but what's on her mind is almost all expressed on her face. On the pale little face, a pair of big eyes flicker, as if they can speak in place of her voice. Mayan can't help but reach out and gently stroke the little girl's head, her voice unconsciously softening. Don't be afraid. You're still alive and well. Miss Een, do you feel any discomfort on your body now? On her body, those broken bones, and the wounds riddled with holes on her flesh. It was only now that Chuching realized that the pain and the remaining traces had actually disappeared. She survived? And she's still in good condition. Did this fairy-like girl in front of her save her? Is there really such a miraculous doctor in the world? Suddenly, Chuching's expression falters, and the admiration and joy on her face turns into anxiety. Her hands are waving frantically. Don't worry, Miss Een. Mayan quickly presses her hands down, her expression softening. The person you asked us to save has been rescued. He's fine. Chuching was taken aback, and then tears rolled down her cheeks without warning. She suddenly straightens up, kneels on the bed, and repeatedly kowtows towards Mayan. Muyen doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. She quickly gets up to help her up. However, the little girl was very stubborn and would kowtow no matter what. Behind him came the sound of wheels grinding across the floor. Muyen turns around and sees Chu Moli looking at them with great interest. She immediately says in a bad mood, "Third senior brother, aren't you embarrassed to continue watching the show?" The woman in front of them might be their future sister-in-law. Could they bear the kowtow of their future second sister-in-law? The corners of Chu Moli's lips curled up slightly. Only then did he speak unhurriedly, "Missing Chuching. Is it? Don't you want to see the person you risked your life to save?" As expected, Chuching stopped kowtowing and looked over with a face full of joy. Suddenly, her expression froze, and she made a gesture with her hands, her eyes filled with doubt. Muyen didn't understand sign language, but Chu Moli did. He smiled and said, "The person that Miss Een wants to save is called Qin Jiu, right?" Chuching nodded in a daze, but there was a hint of vigilance in her big black and white eyes. Chapter 3410. However, the next moment, she hears the clear and pleasant voice of the fairy doctor softly ring in her ear. "Qin Jiu is the second brother of our Xiao Yao sect. So in terms of gratitude, it should be us kowtowing to you. Missine, thank you for preserving second brother's chance of survival. They planted a puppet goo in second brother's body. This kind of goo specializes in devouring the souls of humans and beasts, turning them into a mindless, self-destructing shell that obeys orders. Mayan takes Enchanting to the window where Chinjo is sleeping and says in a low voice, I can remove the puppet goo now, but I can't guarantee that the soul absorbed by the puppet goo can be returned to second brother unharmed. So now we can only wait for Xiao Qi to come back with the soul-recuperating pond water. With the soul-recuperating pond water to nourish him, even if it's just a weakened soul-recuperating pond water. Plus her Shun musician skill, soul-calming soul. Mayan can at least guarantee that second brother still has a chance to be cured. Enchanting sits on the bed and looks down at the unconscious Chinjo, her eyes unblinking. There seems to be soft and brilliant starlight slowly dispersing in her eyes. She unconsciously reaches out to grab Chinjo's big rough hand, gently holding it. Her lips gently open and close, and she noiselessly whispers, Second brother, this time, Xiao Qing finally won't drag you down. Missine, did you know my second brother before? Hearing Mayan's voice, Enchanting suddenly loosens her grip on Chinjo's hand. Her two small hands hurriedly hide behind her, and her whole face and ears are red, just like a little girl who has been caught playing a prank. Mayan is once again amused, and she can't help but feel happy for her second brother. She didn't expect that second brother, with his silly appearance, could actually find such a kind little girl who wholeheartedly thinks for him. Enchanting is embarrassed for a while and wants to explain to Mayan, but she remembers that Mayan doesn't understand sign language. She frowns and thinks for a moment, then makes a gesture of writing with a pen. Mayan smiles and nods. Soon, someone brings up a charcoal pen and a cardboard. Enchanting scribbles on it for a long time. Then she raises the cardboard in front of her for Mayan to see. It turns out that second brother is the son of the former elder of Lingbo Hall, Yufeng. However, when Jade Phoenix gave birth to Chinjo, she passed away due to dystocia. Even Chinjo, who had been in her mother's womb for too long during childbirth, had lost her mind and became mentally retarded. In the entire Over the Wave Palace, be it the adults or the children, they all ridiculed and bullied him in every possible way. As for Chinjo's father, he was just a low-level cultivator with an ordinary cultivation level. He did not even have the qualifications to stay in the surmounting wave hall. After Jade Phoenix died, she could only move to a small town next to Embroidered Silk City. At first, Chinjo's father would take good care of him. However, he immediately became impatient. After marrying his second wife and giving birth to a few children, he completely disregarded Chinjo. She allowed him to be ridiculed by the people in town and suppressed and framed by his stepmother at home. It was clearly not his fault, but in the end, Chinjo was always the scapegoat. As for Chinjo's father, he would never investigate and would only make him obedient. When Chinjo was 7 years old, a group of young cultivators from the towering Wave Palace passed by the town and discovered the posthumous child of the once high and mighty elder Jade Phoenix. This group of people remembered the fun of bullying and humiliating Chinjo, so they reverted to their old ways. Chinjo couldn't bear it anymore and accidentally killed a disciple surnamed Li unexpectedly. That disciple turned out to be the legitimate son of the Li family, a big family in town. Chapter 34:11. In order to retaliate, the Li family smashed and tortured Chinjo every day. They even accidentally killed the baby girl that Chinjo's stepmother had just given birth to. From then on, Chinjo's stepmother hated him to the bone, and even Chinjo's father loathed him. Not only did they not listen to his explanation, but they also scolded the ignorant Chinjo with harsh and unpleasant words every day. She watched Enchanting describe Chinjo's childhood experience in words. Mu Yan's face turned cold. No wonder second brother always felt very insecure. When he was bullied by Hua Bue in the Tianshan Mountains, he refused to resist. He seemed to be afraid that he would implicate others, implicate the Xiaoyao sect. It turned out that second brother had such a painful experience when he was a child. Over the Wave Hall, Mu Yen chews these 3 words over and over in her mouth, her eyes revealing a cold, murderous intent. How strong is Mu Yan's divine soul now? Releasing the murderous aura from her body, Yin Chuqing suddenly turns pale with fright. Mu Yen comes back to her senses and quickly restrains her breath. Miss Yin, I'm sorry for scaring you. Please continue to tell me everything that happened that year. Yin Chuqing quickly shakes her head, then lowers her head again and writes several lines. Then she raises the cardboard again. Half of the little girl's face is hidden behind the cardboard. Only her smooth forehead and twinkling almond-shaped eyes are exposed. She looks indescribably soft and cute. Mu Yen smiles and her eyes fall on the cardboard. Perhaps the death of her little sister in swaddling clothes stimulated Qin Jiu's nerves. When the Li family came again, Qin Jiu finally exploded. This time it caused a great sensation. Even the elders of the Over-the-Wave Hall and the Lord of the Over-the-Wave Hall, Yin Tianxiang, were alarmed. Yin Tianxiang had been recuperating in seclusion all these years. It wasn't until he came out of seclusion this time that he knew that the only posthumous child of his close friend Yu Feng had fallen into such a state. Yin Tianxiang was shocked and angry. He quickly took Qin Jiu home and took care of him. And Yin Chuqing is Yin Tianxiang's daughter. It's different from others who despise Qin Jiu for being stupid. Yin Chuqing could not speak since she was a child. Because of her defects, she never had any prejudice against Qin Jiu. Instead, she liked to play with him. With the shelter of the Lord's family, Qin Jiu had a happy time. However, the good times did not last long. 14 years ago, there was an unforeseen event that caused their lives to change drastically. The Treading Wave Temple had never been able to refine a puppet that surpassed the commander grade. As a result, they were always at the bottom of the 8 major sections. One day, Deputy Temple Master Sun Yuchang brought a piece of great news. He had found the world's best puppet attraction in a valley, and he might be able to refine a real monarch-level puppet with it. Therefore, Yin Chuqing's father brought his trusted subordinates along with him. However, these people, including Yin Tianxiang, all died in the valley. Sun Yuchang was the only one who managed to escape. Later, Sun Yuchang became the master of the Over-the-Wave Palace. Uncle Sun, who used to be gentle and kind, bared his ferocious fangs. Yin Tianxiang's father had a peak commander-grade human puppet. Before he died, he handed over the control of the puppet to Yin Chuqing. But before Yin Chuqing could sign a contract with the human puppet, Sun Yuchang sent people to kill her. It was Qin Jiu who risked his life to protect her so that Yin Chuqing could complete the contract with the human puppet. However, Qin Jiu was knocked off the sky cliff and never heard from again. Yin Chuqing's eyes were bright, and there seemed to be crystal tears swirling in them. Chapter 34:12. Yin Chuqing's eyes were bright, and there seemed to be sparkling and translucent tears swirling in them. She wrote several sheets of paper before she finished telling a story from a long time ago. At that time, I always thought that second brother was dead. I killed him. I feel like I'm dreaming to be able to see him again. I heard from my second brother that he was very happy in the Xiaoyao school. It's great to have all of you by his side all these years. The girl smiled softly and blissfully, but she couldn't help but shed tears. However, he was not sad or sad. He was truly too happy. Mu Yen reaches out and rubs her head. It's also our second senior brother's fortune to have met you. I still have some matters to attend to. Can I trouble Miss Yin to stay here and take care of second senior brother? Her gaze swept over the 2 interlocked hands on the bed, and she suddenly smiled slyly. I'm afraid Miss Yin has no choice but to take care of me even if she doesn't want to. Yin Chuqing was stunned. Only then did she realize that she was holding Qin Jiu's hand again. Moreover, Qin Jiu was clearly still unconscious. But those hands seemed to have their own consciousness, firmly grasping her little hand. Qin Jiu's hands were very big, and there were thick calluses left behind by cultivation on his palms. He held Yin Chuqing's smooth and soft little hand tightly, causing him to feel a slight pain. But Yin Chuqing felt very at ease. It was as if this was the only way to prove that her second brother was still alive and by her side. But now that it's been pointed out by Mayan, Yin Chuqing immediately blushes. wishing that she could find a hole to burrow into. Mu Yen teases this cute second sister-in-law enough before leaving with a smile. Sure enough, she was as bad as third brother? After Mayan leaves, the room falls into silence. Only then did Enchantress gently pat her burning little face. She turned around and looked at Qingjiu, who was lying on the bed with a gentle and blissful gaze. Suddenly, TST TST TST. Once again, a sharp buzzing sound rang out in his head. What was that sound? Enchantress furrowed her brows in pain. Qingjiu, who was holding his hand, also frowned. Enchantress only found it jarring. Qingjiu revealed a pained expression. Ah! Enchantress anxiously called out twice, wanting to check on the condition of the Qin wine. A ray of light suddenly lit up between Qingjiu's eyebrows, and then a familiar cold voice sounded in Enchantress's ears. "Eldest miss, you've gone out to play for so long. Shouldn't you be back by now?" Sun Yuchong. Enchantress widened her eyes in horror. She subconsciously opened her arms, wanting to protect Qingjiu behind her. At the same time, his hand touched the shelf beside him. As long as this was pushed down, it would definitely attract the attention of the people outside. That way, second brother could be saved. "Eldest miss, I advise you not to act rashly. Otherwise, your beloved puppet will be destroyed." Enchantress's movements suddenly froze. First miss is so obedient. You should know very well what this person means to you, right? If it's destroyed, not only will your father not be able to rest in peace in the underworld, I'm afraid he'll be in so much pain that he'll want to die, right? Enchantress was so angry that her whole body was trembling, and her eyes were bloodshot. "I don't know what kind of backer you found for you to survive, but you should be very clear that as long as you're still on this floating island, you won't be able to escape the palm of our towering wave palace. If you don't obediently obey, you'll only implicate those who help you." Enchantress's eyes were brimming with anger and unwillingness, her hands tightly clenched into fists. Chapter 34:13. Eldest miss, don't blame me for not reminding you. I'll only give you 1 day. Within 1 day, if you don't bring Qingjiu back to Over the Waves Hall, your treasure human puppet will disappear from the world. And the person who took you in will also die without a burial place. The light on Qingjiu's forehead slowly disappears. The noise in Enchantress's ears and Sun Yuchong's voice also disappear at the same time. It's as if nothing had happened. But Enchantress knows that it's not. She stares at the unconscious Qingjiu on the bed, tears silently falling from her eyes. Those crystal-clear eyes are filled with reluctance, sadness, and indignation. However, in the end, it all slowly turns into persistence and determination. "What did you say? Miss En is missing?" Hearing the subordinate's report, Mayan shows an incredulous expression. "Early this morning, Miss En said that she wanted to go for a walk in the city and told us not to follow her. However, she did not return even after the sun had set. We then realized that something was wrong and sent people to look for her, but there was no trace of Miss En at all. Then we found this in second young master's room." The subordinate hands over a letter. Mu Yen opens it to take a look, and her brows immediately wrinkle. When Chu Moli enters the door, he happens to see her absent-minded appearance. He can't help but chuckle. Future second sister-in-law ran away? Mayan is startled. Third brother also heard that Miss En left without saying goodbye? Chu Moli, no, it's just a guess. Junior sister, didn't you say that future second sister-in-law also has a puppet goo larva in her mind? Moreover, this larva was clearly just planted. I guess that these people wouldn't plant a goo in second sister-in-law's body for no reason. Mayan frowns, but I'm sure that the puppet goo larva can't hurt Miss En now. Suddenly, her voice pauses. The young goo in Miss En's body is the child goo of the puppet goo in second brother's mind? Chu Moli smiles and doesn't speak. Mayan's face becomes very unsightly. I didn't think about it at all. She thought that the two goo were completely dormant and wouldn't have any effect on second brother and Enchantress. She didn't expect that it was a mother and child goo. Once it gets close, it will be activated for a short time. Chu Moli didn't have any medical skills, so he naturally didn't think too much about it. He had completely regressed from the outcome. Mu Yen said with a sullen face, "So, Missing left because she was controlled? No. This idea was quickly rejected by her. If the larva of the puppet goo had the ability to control people's minds, she would have discovered it long ago." Chu Moli held the letter left behind by In Chu Qing, and also smiled faintly. She left on her own accord, but she didn't do it willingly. She should have been coerced. Treading Wave Palace should still have something that can threaten her. Floating Island, Towering Wave Hall. Eldest Miss, didn't I ask you to bring back the Qin wine? Sun Yuchang sat on a tall wooden armchair and looked down at In Chu Qing with a faint smile. Why did you come back alone? In Chu Qing pursed her lips tightly and didn't speak. Her pair of almond-shaped eyes glared fiercely at him. How dare you? Who told you to treat the Alliance Master with such an attitude? A foot ruthlessly kicked her from behind, sending her tumbling to the ground. Just a useless mute. Do you think you're still the daughter of the lofty palace master? Sun Yuchang caressed the jade ring on his hand, speaking unhurriedly. Chapter 34:14. Sun Yuchang touched the jade ring in his hand and said slowly, Miss, do you think you can save Qin Zhou's life by sneaking back? Don't you know that as long as the child goo in your body is matured, you can easily find the position of the mother goo? In Chu Qing's face was pale, and her body trembled violently because of anger. Sun Yuchang looked back at the young man beside him. The young man slowly walked down the stairs and came to In Chu Qing. With a slight movement of his divine sense, a colorful poisonous snake and a reddish-brown poisonous scorpion appeared in his hand. In Chu Qing's eyes showed obvious fear. Her thin and white hand trembled as she drew in the air. Big brother, please don't do this to me. Sun Lei looked down at the weak and pale girl. A touch of pity flashed in his eyes, but it was immediately replaced by jealousy, anger, and distortion. Little Qing, you asked for all of this. I treat you so well, don't care that you are mute, don't care about your background and want to marry you, but you only have eyes for that fool Qin Zhou. Why? How am I inferior to that idiot who can't even be considered a human? In Chu Qing's hand slowly stopped drawing. Her eyes were red, and the fear on her face could not dissipate, but she forced herself to straighten her back, unwilling to beg for mercy again. Seeing her like this, Sun Lei hated her even more. He suddenly bent down and grabbed In Chu Qing's chin, forcing her to open her mouth. Then he stuffed the poisonous snake in his hand directly into her mouth. He made In Chu Qing swallow all kinds of poisons one by one. This was the crudest and cruelest way to make the goo ripen. Whoa! In Chu Qing struggled desperately, tears streaming down her face. Seeing this scene, the others in the hall could not bear to look away. Only Sun Yuchang and his son, one with interest, the other with madness, did not have the slightest pity. Bang! Suddenly, a figure slammed into Sun Lei like a bolt of lightning. The burly young man and the poisonous snake in his hand were knocked away together. In Chu Qing was still in a state of shock when she saw the figure in front of her. She saw the figure in front of her, and could not help hugging her and wailing. It was a tall, slender woman who was wrapped up tightly from head to toe and wore a mask on her face. She was surrounded by a powerful psionic pressure that protected the crying girl behind her. But strangely, her eyes, which were exposed to the outside world, were cold and still. He was like a walking corpse, a puppet without any signs of life. Sun Lei crawled up from the ground and stared coldly at the woman who was standing in front of the little girl. He said sternly, "You knew. Get out of my way." The woman, called Jade Slave, did not move at all. "Father!" Sun Lei roared angrily. "What's the use of keeping such a disobedient puppet? Didn't you say that you were going to destroy her completely?" "Without the Jade Slave, I want to see who will be able to protect you, In Chu Qing, in this towering wave hall in the future." Sun Yuchang glanced coldly at Yunu, stood up and slowly walked down the stairs. By the time he was in front of In Chu Qing, the corners of his mouth had already curled up into a smile. Lei is right. With that monarch peerless puppet, This old and disobedient thing is no longer of any use. Since you dare to obstruct us, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. With a wave of his hand, a pure black dagger was already in his hand. The dagger looked ordinary, but the moment it appeared, the surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped by more than 10 degrees. It was bone-chilling. Chapter 34:15. Remember in 1 second, 800 $say net. Wonderful pop-up window free reading. As Sun Yuchang injects his spiritual power into the dagger, the eyes of Jade's slave, who is the closest to him, flash with a strange light, and her body trembles involuntarily. This dagger is called the Spiritual Energy Disintegrating Knife. It's a heavenly god tool that only the sect master of Over the Wave Palace is allowed to possess, and it's specifically used to dismantle and destroy puppets. No matter how strong a puppet is, it'll turn into powder under this Spiritual Energy Disintegrating Knife. Seeing the appearance of the Spiritual Energy Disintegrating Knife, Enchantress's face loses all color. She rushes over and stands in front of the puppet Jade's slave. Sunlay sneered, "Enchantress, she's just a human puppet. Why are you so protective of her? What's more, do you think you can protect her just because you want to?" With tears in her eyes, Enchantress glares at the father and son. She suddenly rushes over and grabs Sun Yuchang's hand that's holding the Spiritual Energy Disintegrating Knife. Sun Yuchang thinks that she's going to take the knife, and his face shows a mocking expression. The next moment, however, he sees that soft and weak girl, who seems like she could be blown away by the wind, hit the blade of the dagger head-on. Blood splatters everywhere. The girl's delicate body slowly falls down like a willow catkin, falling into a pool of blood. From the huge hole on top of her head, a small bug that's almost invisible to the naked eye flows out along with the blood. Because it came into contact with the energy emitted by the Spiritual Energy Disintegrating Knife, it twitches a few times, then dies. Jade's slave's hand, which wants to save her, freezes in midair. Like a puppet that suddenly lost its master's order, it no longer moves. But her long eyelashes tremble slightly. The entire hall falls into a deathly silence. The calm expression on Sun Yuchang's face finally cracks, turning into a twisted malevolence. Damn slut. She actually dared to kill the child Gu. Floating Island, Liberty City. Mu Yen is using the Shun musician skill, Calm Soul, to repair Qin Jiu's soul. Suddenly, the unconscious Qin Jiu abruptly sat up on the bed. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Second brother? You're awake." Mu Yen quickly stops playing and is about to step forward. Qin Jiu disregarded everything and stood up from the bed, letting out a hoarse roar. "Little Qing, little Qing, little Qing. Second senior brother, you can't move now." Mu Yen jumps in fright and promptly gets up to stop her. However, Qin Jiu's strength was shockingly great. Furthermore, it was as if he had gone insane. He kept shouting for Xiao Qing as he rushed out. His shouts were so shrill, crazy, and desperate that anyone who heard it would feel as if their heart was being squeezed. Mu Yen took out the silver needles, wanting to calm Qin Jiu down first. However, when she turned her head, she saw her second senior brother with tears streaming down his face. Men did not shed tears easily, not to mention second senior brother, who did not know pain, bitterness, or even grievance. How sorrowful must he be to cry like this? Mu Yen takes a deep breath, then slowly inserts the needle into the back of his neck. After Qin Jiu's emotions stabilized a little, she then said gently, "Second senior martial brother, tell me, did something happen to Miss Yin?" Qin Jiu blankly turns his head, and Mu Yan's face is reflected in his eyes little by little. Little junior martial sister. Qin Jiu seems to finally see the person in front of him. Little junior martial sister. Save. Save little Qing. Mu Yan holds his hand and helps him to sit on the bed. "Okay. Second senior martial brother, don't worry. No matter what happened to Miss Yin, I will definitely save her. Second senior martial brother. Believe me. Okay?" Chapter 34:16. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say net. Wonderful pop-up window free reading. Mo. Believe, junior sister. Chin-jo said eagerly. He knew that there was nothing in this world that his junior sister couldn't do. Mu-yen. Tell me, what happened to Miss Een? Chin-jo desperately wanted to explain, but that was the connection between the mother and child puppet goo. He couldn't see it clearly. Plus, he was clumsy with words, so how could he explain it clearly? Chin-jo was so anxious that he almost went crazy. His eyes were usually covered with a layer of white veil, but now they were red, as if blood was about to flow down. Second brother, calm down. Feeling the puppet goo in Chin-jo's body stirring, Mu-yen quickly said, I have a way. She plucked the strings and said in a deep voice, Second brother, the sound of the zither will lead you into a dream in a moment. Don't resist. Let me see with my own eyes what happened to Miss Een. An hour later, Mu-yen opened her eyes, the anger in her chest almost gushing out. Seeing Een Chuching's miserable state, not to mention the second brother, even she couldn't help but want to tear those beasts into pieces. Mu-yen was about to pluck the strings to wake Chin-jo up, but she heard a knock on the door. City Lord, Lingbo Temple has sent someone to see you. You? You are the City Lord of Liberty City? Sun Lei saw the girl in white walking out slowly, and his eyes almost stared straight. He didn't even notice that his saliva had flowed to the corner of his mouth. At this time, there was only one thought in his mind. How could there be such an alluring stunner in the world? If he could marry such a woman, he would have no regrets in his life. Mu-yen smiled gently. Under the respectful welcome of Zhou Zixuan and the others, she sat in the seat of honor. Elder son? I didn't expect you to be an elder of Lingbo Temple, one of the 8 major sects, at such a young age. Sun Lei raised his chin, showing a proud expression. I wonder what advice Elder Sun has come to my Liberty City this time? Sun Lei coughed lightly. I dare not advise you, but we have received news that the 2 thieves wanted by my Lingbo Temple have appeared in your Liberty City. With that, he took out the arrest warrant and showed it in front of Mu-yen. Will City Lord Jun deny it? Mu-yen glances at him with a smile that isn't a smile. Elder Sun, what is your purpose? It's better to speak frankly. Sun Lei chuckled. City Lord Jun sure is straightforward. I hope that Liberty City can hand over this thief to the Towering Wave Temple. Of course, the Towering Wave Temple will definitely not give less than what is due. In fact, we will even double the amount. Just consider it as forming a good relationship with Liberty City. What does City Lord Jun think? Mayan stood up. As she walked down, she asked casually, Elder Son, Liberty City even took in a little girl who couldn't talk. She seemed to be from the Soaring Wave Temple. I wonder how she is now. Sun Lei's face sank when he heard this. He gnashed his teeth and said, that shameless slut. As a member of the Over the Wave Temple, she actually dared to betray the Over the Wave Temple. What's the point of keeping her alive? Naturally, we should kill her. Mayan's eyes sink, and an ice-cold killing intent flashes through them. Sun Lei, City Lord Jun, please hand over that Chin-jo as soon as possible. Swish! A cold light flashes in front of him, and a silver light slashes Sun Lei's throat. Before he could finish his words, his eyes widen, as if he couldn't react to what had happened at all. The other people of the Towering Wave Temple are also completely dumbfounded. Only when Sun Lei's bloody head rolls to their feet did someone let out a hysterical scream. Chapter 34:17. Remember Love Net in 1 second. Providing you with wonderful reading. Oh, you're crazy. Are you crazy? That's the head's son. How dare you kill Elder Son? How dare you kill the head's only son? Even Zhou Zixuan and the others were dumbfounded. They had thought that Mu-yen would never hand over second young Master Qin. But they didn't expect that their miss would directly behead someone because of a disagreement. And the one she beheaded was the head's own son. Withdrawing her sword, Mu-yen didn't even look at Sun Lei's body. She said lightly, Where's General Wei? Boss Wei is in the martial arts practice field. I'll call him over right away. Mu Yen. No need. I'll go there myself. Zhou Zixuan. Miss, those people from over the Wave Temple are running away. Mu Yen looked at the fleeing figures of a group of people and couldn't help showing a sarcastic smile. Don't worry. They can't escape. Martial Arts Practice Field of Liberty City. Under Wei Tsong's orders, an army of close to 100,000 was training in an orderly manner. Not long ago, they were just a motley crew who escaped from the gravel hill. They were selfish, bullied the weak, and feared the strong. If they gathered together, they might not even be able to defeat a disciple of the weakest sect. However, in just half a year, these tens of thousands of people had been completely reborn. They had become brave and skillful iron-blooded lions. These transformations were brought about by Mu Yan's elixirs and the skill rebirth, as well as Wei Mian's warlord strength and professional training. Now, they were not only obedient, but their strength had also increased greatly. Wei Mian had brought them into the dangerous jungle and experienced one bloody battle after another. They were already battle-hardened lions who had been honed in the battlefield of blood and fire. From now on, they no longer had to fear being abandoned in the gravel hill. They didn't have to fear being abolished and suffering unbearable pain. They married and had children in this increasingly prosperous Liberty City, and they had something to look forward to in their lives. Unlike half a year ago, at this time, Mu Yen and Wei Mian were equivalent to their parents, and Liberty City was their home. Especially Mu Yen. Everyone knew very well that without the city lord, they would always be a group of trash in the gravel hill without a tomorrow or a future. So when Mu Yan's figure falls next to Wei Mian, the tens of thousands of people who had not seen the city lord for a long time all revealed excited expressions and knelt down in unison. Greetings, Castellan. The dense army knelt down on the training field in unison, their bodies emitting a piercingly cold killing intent. Even Mu Yen, who had already seen the formation of the Nether Flame army, couldn't help but be moved. It was only now that she realized how big of a difference there was between a team led by a champion and a team without one. Wei Mian slowly bows towards Mayan. Greetings, Mississippi. Mu Yen got right to the point. If I want to go against Ling Bo Hall right now, would you dare? Wei Mian was slightly startled. Then the corner of his mouth slowly curved up, revealing a disdainful smile. He turned his head to look at the army of 100,000 below and said in a clear voice, one of the 8 great sects of the floating island, Surging Wave Palace, injured the city lord's senior brother, and now they've come to bully us. The city lord asked if we dared to go against the towering Wave Palace. Answer me, do you dare? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Wei Mian's eyes burst with a bright light, and he shouted loudly, those who offend my Liberty City will be killed, destroyed, and annihilated. Kill, destroy, annihilate. Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit Zii. Chapter 34:18. For a time, mountains howled and tsunamis shook the world. At this moment, no one knew that a power was silently rising in a corner at the border of the dark Parasol Desert. Soon, it would turn into a hurricane and sweep across the entire floating island. Floating Island, Immaculate Web City where Towering Wave Palace was located. Have you heard? Towering Wave Palace is besieged by an army of 100,000 and is about to be finished. Are you kidding me? The Leaping Wave Temple is one of the 8 great sects. Unless the 3 major alliances or the Lan family empire mobilizes all their strength, who can trap them and kill them? I can also testify that this news is absolutely true. I have a relative who sweeps the outer courtyard of the Over the Wave Hall. He just ran out yesterday and said that the entire Over the Wave Hall is in a mess. The army that besieged the Towering Wave Palace is said to be from Carefree City? Liberty City? Did you hear it wrong? Which corner of the world did they come from? I've never even heard of them. How could they possibly mobilize 100,000 soldiers to besiege the Over the Wave Palace? Just as everyone was feeling bewildered, the sound of a bugle horn suddenly came from the direction of the sound. Everyone who had doubted the possibility of the Treading Wave Palace being besieged was stunned. This is This is the call for help from the other 3 alliances, 6 families, and 7 sects. No way! Is the Over-the-Wave Palace really at the end of its road? Quick! Let's go and watch the show. I'd like to see which carefree school is able to force Over-the-Wave Palace into such a desperate situation. It can't be that one of the 8 sects is going to change hands again, right? The crowd surged towards the Over-the-Wave Palace like a tide. Some of the more powerful cultivators rode on their swords and soared into the sky. Those who were timid climbed to the peak of a nearby mountain and watched from afar. Then, they saw a densely packed army of 100,000, all dressed in uniform, surrounding the entire Over-the-Wave Palace. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. There's really an army of 100,000. What kind of force is this? Do you see the word embroidered on their clothes? I told you that they are from Liberty City. The person who first exposed the news immediately became arrogant. But there were also people who were full of doubts. Liberty City? Is there such a city on the floating island? Why haven't I heard of it before? At this moment, the crisp cry of a bird suddenly came from the sky. Look, the people from the demon sect are here. Isn't that the Pavilion Master's summoned beast? Before the crowd could see who it was, another person cried out in alarm. It's the Beitang family. They also came. Look, he's here with us. Even the Yin family is here. Of the 6 families and 8 sects, 2 families and 3 sects have already come. Are they all here to save the towering Wave Palace? Whoosh! Even one of the 3 alliances, the Luo Yun Alliance, is here. In the blink of an eye, these people from the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects all flew into the Rain Mountain, which was surrounded by 100,000 soldiers. On a mountain peak in the Rain Mountain, Mayan is standing on top of a cliff, coldly looking down at the far distance. Behind her was Qin Jiu, who was still unconscious, and Chu Moli, who was leisurely drinking tea. Suddenly, a few figures shot out of the Over-the-Wave Palace, whose doors had been tightly shut. Finally, it hovers in front of Mu Yen. At this moment, Sun Youchang's face didn't have the slightest trace of the aloof, sinister and cunning expression he had when he was facing Yin Chuqing. I want to chat with more like-minded people. Chapter 34:19. His face was distorted, alternating between blue and white. His eyes were filled with hatred and resentment as he stared at the girl in her early 20s. Waves of resentment and fear welled up in his heart. As early as a few days ago, he thought that his puppets were at his fingertips, and he was dreaming of ruling over the world. However, in the blink of an eye, news came that his only son, Sun Lei's soul lamp, had been extinguished. Sun Yuchang was shocked and angry when he heard the story of his son's tragic death. He swore to tear Mayan into pieces and bury the whole Liberty City with her. However, he didn't even have time to gather his troops and summon enough puppets. 100,000 troops were already pressing down on the border. Sun Youchang's cultivation was at the peak of the sea-splitting realm. There was no lack of experts in the Over-the-Wave Temple. What's more, they had so many powerful puppets in their hands. So, in the beginning, they didn't put this 100,000 troops in their eyes at all. However, as soon as they fought, Sun Yuchang realized how wrong he was. That was not 100,000 low-level cultivators. It was clearly 100,000 lions led by a general, and the strength of this general was far beyond what Sun Yuchang had seen in the Luo Yun League. Generals were divided into 4 levels. If it wasn't a general, then what was it? Could it be comparable to the generals of the Lan family empire? There was a world of difference between 100,000 army led by a general and 100,000 army led by no general. And the blow that this little Liberty City gave him was far more than that. That beautiful girl sitting on the top of the mountain, her white clothes fluttering in the wind, when the zither in her hand slowly sounded a pleasant tune. The strength of the already powerful army commanded by the king's generals actually doubled again. Was it the assistance of a musician, or some magical witchcraft? Sun Youchang's face was livid. Resentment and fear surged in his heart. But in the end, what rose in his heart was a greedy desire. Such an army, such a general, such a heaven-defying assistant musician, plus Qin Jiu's puppet. If he could take all of them on this floating island, who could be Sun Yuchang's opponent? But he also realized at the same time, if it was just a head-on confrontation, even if the Over-the-Wave Temple could take over this force, they would definitely suffer heavy losses. In the end, others would benefit from it. That was why he blew the horn. He wanted to take over the force in front of everyone. His gaze swept across the cultivators who were gradually gathering around them. The resentment on Sun Yuchang's face slowly faded. He stared at Mu Yen coldly, his voice sounding like a viper that had crawled out of an icehouse. You are Jun Mu Yen, the mayor of Liberty City. Did you kill my son Sun Lei? Mayan calmly looks at him, saying word by word, Where's Enchanting? Sun Yuchang's face twisted again. You killed my son for Enchanting? Mu Yen asked again, Where is Enchanting? Before I confirm that she's alive, I have no interest in talking nonsense with you. Bitch, who do you think you are? Sun Yuchang had never been treated so poorly before. For a moment he was seething with anger. But before he could finish speaking, behind Mu Yen Wei Guan's spiritual sense moves, the 100,000-strong army seemed to have received an order in an instant. They suddenly took a step forward in the direction of the Over-the-Wave Palace, and the weapons in their hands slashed forward in unison. I want to chat with more like-minded people. Chapter 34:20. At the same time, Mu Yen plucked the strings of the zither. The sound of the zither turned into white light and fell down. With a loud bang, the thousands of puppets guarding the outermost perimeter of the towering wave palace were all turned into dust by this casual strike. Sun Yuchang felt as if someone had grabbed his throat. His mouth opened slightly and his lips trembled, but he couldn't say a single word. Mayan coldly looks at him. I'll ask again, where's Enchanting? Was he still alive? If Enchanting is already dead, then we don't need to listen to any of your words or schemes. Because I want your entire towering wave hall to be buried with my second sister-in-law. Second sister-in-law? Hearing this form of address, the people of Overwave Palace were stunned. Even the people from the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 7 sects who had rushed over had shocked expressions on their faces. So it turned out that the towering wave palace had captured someone else's close relative. No wonder Liberty City would be so furious. There was complete silence below. Sun Yuchang was so angry that he couldn't speak. Mayan's eyes are ice cold, and she's about to lower her raised hand again. Even if Enchanting was still alive, she would definitely be in great danger. Any further delay would bring her one step closer to death. Since threats didn't work, he might as well raise the entire Overwave Palace to the ground. Don't. Enchanting is not dead yet. We'll bring her out immediately. The people of Treading Wave Palace were badly frightened. They didn't have time to consult Sun Yuchang. They hurriedly yelled and rushed in to carry the unconscious Enchanting out. The moment she sees Enchanting, Mayan's pupils suddenly contract. There was a huge gash on the little girl's head. The wound was even bigger and more hideous than the one on Qin Jiu's head. Her little face was deathly pale, and her chest was barely moving. Even if he used his divine sense to sense her from afar, he could tell that her life force was getting weaker and weaker, and it was about to end soon. Mayan's figure flashes and she rushes in front of Enchanting to treat her. However, Sun Yuchang was faster than her. A cold and cruel hand suddenly clasped Enchanting's neck. With just a little bit of force, the girl's fragile neck would be completely broken, leaving her with no chance of survival. Mu Yan's movements come to a halt, her eyes coldly staring at him. Sun Yuchang laughed in a low voice. Enchanting, that bitch, is indeed still alive, but she's not far from death. If you want her to live, you better not act rashly. Right now, she's like a porcelain that would shatter with a light touch. Furthermore, I've planted a goo in her body. Even if you really snatch her back, as long as I use my divine sense, she'll still die. Mu Yen looked at the little girl in Sun Yuchang's hand, took a deep breath, and threw a porcelain bottle in front of Sun Yuchang. Let my second sister-in-law swallow the healing elixir first. I'll listen to you slowly about the rest of the conditions. Sun Yuchang gnashed his teeth in hatred at her arrogant attitude. But the situation was stronger than he was. This little girl's cultivation was not high, but the power she held in her hands was too strong, and it made him yearn for it too much. Moreover, Enchanting was indeed in a bad situation now. Perhaps he would stop breathing in the next moment. At that time, he wouldn't have any bargaining chips left. Sun Yuchang ordered his subordinates to let Enchanting take the pill, but he didn't dare to leave for even a moment. After confirming that Enchanting's condition had improved slightly, he turned his gaze to look at everyone present. Today, I blew the horn to invite everyone here, mainly to have everyone notarize a matter for me. Alliance Master E, you are the most virtuous and well-respected. I hope that you can fulfill my wish. The Luoyun Alliance's Alliance Master was a middle-aged man with a long beard fluttering in the wind. His skin was fair and firm, and he looked to be in his early 40s, but his cultivation was already at the peak of sea-splitting realm. He wanted to chat with more like-minded people. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.